All right, guys, we're back. As I have previously stated, we're having a follow-up episode with Nedu and Aziz. They're going to be some recurring guys, maybe even call them calls. We'll see. With regards to covering some long-standing anime. So right now we're doing another one on Katakuri. I think he's not. He's one of the like secondary antagonists in Whole Cake.
Yeah, he's technically a secondary antagonist, but I think
The overarching one was Big Mom.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So so we're covering one of the minor tertiary antagonists from Whole Cake Island, Katakuri. I think he's probably one of my favorite, like, quote unquote villains. He's not really a villain. He was just a villain by or antagonist by circumstance.
I see him more of an antagonist than a villain.
Yeah, that's exactly. He's more of an antagonist than a villain. So, there's a quote I wanted to describe Katakuri just for us to kind of create the where's the quote? Yeah, there it is. No, not this. Where is the quote? There it is. I want to start the conversation by just really quoting how Brule, one of the older sisters, described Katakuri, and we can go from there. So one of the things that Brule said about her brother, big brother Katakuri is a superhuman. He's never laid down in his life. He's a man who scorns even the ground. He's always dignified, calm, and strong. He's the perfect human. That's our big brother Katakuri. And to kind of, reinforce that, how do we see him when he first shows up in the show? He's very regal. He's sitting on top of like the cake wall border, and he's not lying down. He's sitting. His arms are folded, legs crossed, very relaxed, looking like he's in control. And even in that scenario, you saw Biggie, right?
Gang Biggie.
Gang Biggie, there we go. Gang Biggie. Even he's just like, he'll be the biggest pain in the ass at the party. His observation hockey is so good that he's able to slightly see ahead into the future. He's a monster. So even just like his appearance, and then he takes out the guy who wasn't invited to Big Mom's party with the jelly bean, and then he's like, this is what's going to happen. You're going to lose 15 men, and then we would have taken him out. So I took him out in advance, and you're going to say, all right, cool. And then Big is like, all right, cool. So just from that standpoint, like how did you guys feel about, I guess that's how I'd open up the conversation. How did you guys feel about, Nedu's already smiling. How do you guys feel about Katakuri?
Just before I get into it, I just want to mention like two things that came to mind when I first saw Katakuri, and they're a little off topic, but one is that like it reminded me of what was it? Joseph Joestar from Joe's Bizarre Adventure, because he has this thing. He has this thing where he's like, you're gonna say this.
Yo,
right? And then the enemy goes like
that.
Yeah, and even like his style is a little bit different than Oda's normal style. Like it honestly screamed a little bit of Araki for me. So I was wondering if that was like an actual JoJo reference.
What I thought Hokuto no Ken. I was like, how come no one's saying Hokuto no Ken, Mad Max, like the leather and the big muscles and the biker look?
Honestly, I mean, JoJo's also referencing that.
That's true.
So
but it's heavily inspired by it too.
Very much so. So that was an interesting thing I thought about. And then also before I get into my thoughts, but there's this I'll admit I was reading not the greatest translation, but this again I was reading One Piece for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And I knew the character's name, but the translated his name as Dogtooth, so it was
I remember that.
underwhelming when I first read it. I'm like, it's Dogtooth. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Which is apparently what Katakuri translates to.
The teeth, it makes sense. The teeth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But to go into my actual the other thoughts, like I really appreciate how intense his introduction is, and this is the thing about Whole Cake Island in general, right? Like it's a fairy tale island with smiles and cheer, and it's very whimsical, but it has a severely, utterly dark and twisted undertone, right? And so that contrast was no better displayed than this big exciting tea party where everything's like made of cake and everything's fluffy, but then you see this metal motherfucker just kind of there, just like, do not mess with this. You try and ruin this wonderful fancy tea party, you're gonna die. Like it was a really wonderful, it just felt like it was displaying the clear contrast between what's on the surface and what's really happening in Whole Cake Island. So I like that a lot.
Hmm. I had similar like first impressions, and I think like Oda is excels in like introducing villains that make you think like how are they even gonna touch this person? Like
Hmm.
remember when Crocodile was first introduced, and you're like, oh, he's sand. How is Luffy even gonna hurt him? Oh, how are they gonna like fight Enel? Or like Kaido's first introduction where like he just falls from the sky, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And like same thing with Katakuri where like he's just chilling, and like I feel like his that first snapshot is what Google should show you when you type in aura, because like that was incredible. And just the fact when like he just like, have you guys watched Sakamoto Days?
Just
It's on the list. It's on the list.
So like he does something like he does this very cool John Wick thing where like he will fight villains with the most unconventional weapons,
Yes,
which
I've
I think
seen clips on
Katakuri
Twitter.
like
Yeah.
I feel like Katakuri like went a level beyond with the jelly beans, because like who the hell would do that with jelly beans? And then like he just casually says, "Oh, like I did it because I saw into the future and like you were gonna do this and you were gonna do that." And I feel like it really hammered the point home of like having the audience think, how are they gonna like go past this person?
hmm
Like amazing first impression, especially all that, and then like slowly like, ooh, Katakuri, the third son, a billion berry bounty, like just
yeah,
incredible.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I was talking to my boy about it, and I was saying like I was watching the Big Mom, one of the Big Mom sing-alongs. I think it was the first one where she first appeared, and I was like, this is a subversion of like Disney movies,
hmm
right? They're singing, even the
Mm.
inanimate objects are singing, and everyone's happy. And then she's like, "I'm gonna take a bit of your life, though.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
take like 100th, like 1/100th of your life a little bit, so you can stay here in this Disneyland."
I
So
remember when I first saw that scene, I'm like, is this like Oda's literal way of showing how like some family members can be like soul sucking? Like how
Wow.
some people like emotionally drain you, and like he took that and like ran with it as like a devil fruit.
hmm
you know
Yeah,
what, Aziz, you're cooking.
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, even the whole thing with Big Mom's family, it just shows like how hard it is to maintain a family, and how like what is used to maintain the family could also be used against it, because it's all
Mm.
about like, I guess you could say, control and fear. And then so because everyone's like that, now you have some people who are, they're not so for you, they're not with you, and that leads into the whole assassination attempt on Big Mom in the arc.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, like for me, Katakuri really represents like the standard archetype of men and males, right? He's super metal, super badass, cool, calm, always on, always focused. Like that's always the terms that people describe. He's on, he's focused, he's prudent, he's careful, he's conscientious, like all of those things. And on the other hand, I'm also seeing someone that really represents a lot of terms that you and me, Nedo, have talked about. When it comes to John Henryism, when it comes to concusseurs, when it comes to being a workhorse, he also represents those ideas as well. Yeah, and I just really found him like a really interesting character. Even and like because he has to kind of maintain this image. Well, this is a thing I wanted to kind of first touch on, is that because he has to maintain this image, that someone, even I forgot who said it, but someone said Katakuri is the foundation of the Big Mom pirates. And when you think about that, that means you have to really operate in a very certain way. It means that, like, how do I word this? If you're not on, everyone's not going to be on their game.
Yeah.
He's pretty much the Zoro role in like her crew.
Perfectly worded. I would say Pusapero is more like a Sanji role.
Yeah.
And then I would say Katakuri is and because there's even that poster from one of the mangas. You guys more so read the manga, where it was like all the famous number twos. It was Zoro, it was King, it was who else was on it? Katakuri was on it, Rayleigh,
Killer and Beppo were on there too.
There we go. Yep. They were all the number twos. Yeah. Katakuri, I would say Prospero, as much, which is I also like how Katakuri was the second oldest and Prospero was the eldest. It wasn't a sort of like division between the two of them. They both knew the roles that they played. Prospero was like, I'm not strong, but I know how to manage everybody. Katakuri is like, I'm not here to manage people. I'm here to set the bar. I'm here to set the expectation. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to manage everyone. Like when things are going on, it's Prospero who's dealing with it. Katakuri was just like, I'm gonna go front line, deal with what needs to get done.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I think one of the things about her, like the Big Mom Pirates, the Big Mom family, like it's run like it's a gang family, right? Like I mean that's
Mafia. I
why we
thought
have
of Mafia.
exactly it's a mafia family. And like we've got like in the background Strusen, who's kind of like pulling the strings of a lot of stuff because Big Mom herself isn't really it needs to
That
be
was the chef.
put in
That
the
was the head
direction.
chef, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
He
It needs to
reminded
be
me of the guy who was like influencing the snot guy who was influencing Doflamingo. He made me think of him.
Oh yes. I can't remember his name, but yes, it's kind
Wait,
of
which
like a
guy?
similar. In Dressrosa, like the snot guy that is kind of
Oh my God, I hated that dude so much.
yeah, that guy's gross.
Sorry, I feel like it starts
Yeah.
with a T, but he was
Yeah.
I kind of considered him actually the major antagonist of Dressrosa.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Strusen has almost a similar role, although he's a lot less. You don't really see him
Yeah,
that
it's
much.
influential because Big Mom is a little bit more.
Mm.
Well, no,
Oh, Treble.
Treble.
There we go. Yeah,
Treble was his name. Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
Treble. I considered him more of the actual major antagonist of
Mhm.
Dressrosa, and then Doflamingo was secondary because Treble is the one who's been influencing Doflamingo since he was young, which I
Yes.
really like. I don't want to deviate too much, but I really like when Treble was just like, yeah, no, this is who Doflamingo is. He's
Yeah.
always been like this. This is not
I mean, to
me.
be fair, he did groom him as a child.
Yes, he
I
did.
remember
Like
correctly.
we saw how like Doflamingo is already
Twisted.
violent and
he
sociopathic
facilitated it.
in nature as a child, and then Treble just like
Yeah,
like
he
nourished
nurtured
it.
it.
He nourished it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I thought the same thing with the chef. I was like, interesting. He's
Yeah.
kind of doing the same Treble stuff. So
Yeah, it's fascinating, and so to get yeah, like absolutely, and it's fascinating how that kind of story kind of keeps happening here and there, like even
Mhm.
with um this idea of a fear as a way of control, and that's of course how Katakuri controls his like I'm sure we'll get into it more, but that's how he controls his sphere of influence, right?
Yep.
At some point, he's like, I'm going to be I'm going to be so in charge that no one will even think of acting out. And when they do, they're gonna like he'll set an example, and everyone else is like, "Oh shit, it's Katakuri." You know what I mean? Like he like he just him being there is like a sign. Is just like anyone in the sphere is gonna feel afraid. Is it going to feel absolute fear? And that's kind of the way he's designed himself to be. Because of trauma, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
this reminds me. I don't know which anime had this quote, but I don't know if it's like Jujutsu Kaisen or My Hero.
Mm.
Well, like a character that was like so overpowered in the universe just said, "Oh, why like someone said, "Oh, like we need better security for the place," and he's like, "What's greater security?" Oh, it was Bleach, the
Yep.
captain,
Yamamoto.
when he said, "What's greater security than me?"
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm here. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Wish everyone turned into a meme along with Nah, I'd win.
Yeah, no, I went. Yeah, that's. I see that one a lot. But yeah.
Old man.
But yeah, no, you really touched on a good point, Nedu, in a sense of there's this sort of, which I don't agree with I don't agree with everything or a lot of the things that he says, but Jordan B. Peterson said something about like, being it's like a controlled beast. Like you can exert violence, you can do certain things, but you're not going to. Like there's that restraint, that ability to restrain yourself.
Yeah.
But we know that if you were to let loose, it's terrifying. Like it makes me even think of like, I think of a lot of characters when it comes to stuff. I think of like, I know Aziz, you're not as much into the comic book stuff, but like Captain America, like he could, like when he's fighting people, he's a super soldier. If he actually punched you full force, he blew up. Like Aziz, you
Isn't the
work
same
out.
thing with Spider-Man? How like he always holds back?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like if they actually punched people, it's a wrap.
Done.
Like Captain America, like Aziz, you work out. Captain America blew a punching bag with a punch.
Wow.
Yeah, just knocked it right off the wall.
Yeah.
Blew the whole
That is
back
insane.
out. That's what someone said. But he blew the whole back out.
Oh, I almost missed that.
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
I was like, he blew, and then he's able to carry one over his shoulder. Like if he actually punched a human, it's a wrap. Let alone throwing his shield and all that stuff, right? So and that's what we love to see. Even like I don't know if you guys watched it, Rebel Ridge. Like I know the idea. Okay, you watched it. Like the idea of like you saw I forgot Aaron Pierce's character's name, but like you saw how like the first sequence was in the police station where he was right in front of us. So I'll kind of give a description to the audience and to Aziz. Like he's the Aaron Pierre. He's gonna be playing Green Lantern. I know you've seen Aaron Pierre. I know you've seen that, Aziz, at some point.
Honestly, no, it doesn't ring a bell.
Really? Wow. You are the first. You're the first black man who hasn't been exposed to Aaron Pierre. They don't know what I'm talking about.
Aaron Pierre?
I bet if you saw it, you'd be like, "Oh, I've seen this."
You've seen this.
I feel like if you sent me a video, I'll probably recognize it. I think.
Okay, I'll send it after. But,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, so he's standing in front of the police sheriff, and the police sheriff is like want to point the gun at him. In this matter of 3 seconds, he disarms the police officer of his gun holding in his face.
Yeah.
And then he disarmed, like, basically. Granted, it's like backcountry kind of police stations. Everyone's not having the best equipment, but he disarmed, like, I think 2 police officers in like 10 seconds. Without killing any of them, without maiming any of them. And I was just like, wow, this is controlled violence. It's violence because someone's getting hurt, but no one is getting a broken arm. No one's walking away with lasting injuries. And so it makes me think of, like I said, the Katakuri aspect of just like Spider-Man and Captain America, Superman, all these characters where like they're able to exert violence to control their environment, but there's a restraint. And I think that's what a lot of men kind of crave, to be that, to be him. I think Katakuri is not just the emphasis of, is not just the embodiment of aura. I would also say he's embodiment of him, that guy.
Yeah.
He walks around and Biggie was just like, yo, shoot, he's here.
Yeah. Katakuri, also known as Himothy.
Amazing.
I'm glad we have Aziz here.
I mean,
Yeah,
thank you. But also, like, I guess, like, it's reflected heavily in like how his younger siblings like really pretty much like deify him, if not just idolize him, because I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but like in the fight against Luffy, and I don't know which younger sister it was aside from
Flampe.
Yeah, like she was, oh my god, like she was pretty much a cheerleader. It was crazy.
Yeah, she really was.
Again, I'm sure we'll get to it, and because I really love the difference between Flampe and Brûlé, right? Like how they actually, like the love of the image versus the love of the actual person, right? Like that's a really beautiful moment that, again, we're sure we'll get to, but like the control, just even to go to the controlled violence. And this is something that's so interesting too, because there's often a dichotomy for black men in particular, and I can say this for sure from like honestly personal experience and people that I've worked with. There's this idea that you are supposed to be that guy, but then also you have to restrain, because your anger and your violence is devastatingly scary for people, right? Like it's just like someone comes to you and says something horrible or does something to you, and then if you retaliate in any way, it's all of a sudden you've got a bit of a rep going, and that could either be beneficial or it could be detrimental depending on your situation.
The guy from White Girls starts with you guys know the big guy. He used to do the Old Spice commercials. Remember he starts with
his name is Mustafa something, I think.
No, you're thinking of the newer guy. There was a guy before. I cannot remember his. I can't
remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember his name at all.
I just looked it up, and it's Terry Crews.
Terry, is it? Hold on, let me see.
Because I looked up like old.
Yeah, Terry Crews. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I didn't know he did those too. Okay.
Very, very, very early on, before Isaiah Mustafa came on. Isaiah mythologized himself in the Old Spice commercials and really put them on the next level. But no, Terry Crews, when he was being harassed, I forgot the white guy's name, the guy who plays in House of Cards.
Oh, was that the incident where like he touched him inappropriately?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like people are like, why did you just punch him? And it's just like, I'm a 6'4" black man. If I punch like a 5'8" white guy, it's a wrap. My career's done.
Yeah, and like not to talk about that guy too much, was that's Spacey, and sucks.
Yeah, there we go, Kevin Spacey. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly it. That's actually the perfect thing to bring up, right? Because it's just like there's expectation to be that, but then if you actually enact those things, it can be very damaging and very punishing. And like it's been years for sure, but like I used to do martial arts. Like when I was younger, I got into a lot of fights, like a lot of fights, like probably until I was like 14, which like surprises people, but it was a thing. Um,
Damn.
and and it was it was pretty bad. Like but like again, you'd have this thing where people were harassing you for days and days, and then you finally retaliated, and then all of a sudden it's just like, why did you do that? You're a problem. And so I remember too, when it comes to that restraint, like that was something I really had to learn. Of course, like there's a whole other story to that, but I remember as well, like when I started learning martial arts, um, I would get into way less fights because it was almost more the just like the threat of violence was scarier to people than me actually doing it. Again, very easygoing person, but like I just give them a look and they'd be like terrified. And also, like again, I don't know if you've ever had to like try fight someone without like knowing that you could really hurt them, but like I need to defend myself, but I if I hurt this person badly, I'm in trouble. Like that's really really hard, and it takes a lot of restraint because you're also very angry and your adrenaline's pumping while you're fighting, right? So like
The idea of
just
exerting control over your environment and the person who is trying to cause harm to you. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So like when even just like thinking about Katakuri, I was thinking about that a lot and how like oftentimes black men do have to show an ungodly amount of restraint in order to um not like keep yourself safe in some ways at the then it's just like and then there's that balancing act between keeping the restraint and then also being that guy, and
Hmm.
like it's a very difficult line to dance across, and sometimes that line moves constantly, so yeah, Katakuri really brought that up for me.
Yeah, sounds like the idea is like you want people to think you're scary, but you don't want them to see you like being scary.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it.
Hmm.
Like, if you, yeah, and because if they see you as scary, then it causes problems for you. But at the same time, you also don't want people to mess with you because you don't want to cause more damage. It's
Exactly.
this really difficult cycle, and I think for Katakuri, like again, dog's tired. You know, like he's tired. He's emotionally tired. Um, which again we'll get to.
Yeah, no, what did I want to say? You guys brought some really good points, but yeah, Neto, you and I were texting about it. Where I'm like, a lot of us as black men, we're kind of held to, you know, the standards of some of our great leaders, right? You know, the Malcolm X's, the Patrice Lumumbas, the Shaka Zulus, the it's mythology, but Sundiata, like a lot of these prominent, you know, Nelson Mandela were like, unless you are, to kind of go back on what Aziz said, ahimothy, right? You aren't doing good enough. You aren't
Mhm.
enough, right? Like I'm sure you guys have heard some of those things even on Instagram of like, I forgot her name, but she was basically saying like, because MLK, Martin Luther King, allegedly cheated on his wife, therefore all the great things he did doesn't matter. So basically, unless you are, I don't know, at minimum Jesus, the Prophet Muhammad, you're just not good enough, right? You have to at minimum be that, and if not, you're not. Oh, you made a mistake? No. Oh, you let someone, you know, talk out the side of their mouth about you? Oh, you didn't say something, or you didn't do something in this scenario, or you didn't fight 10 guys to protect, and you didn't figure out the thing that you need to do for your family. You didn't have the perfect conversation with your kids, or you didn't have the perfect retort for what your wife said this or did that. Unless you are basically perfect, unless you're constantly, there's someone in our anime group chat who said like you're constantly on.
Mm,
Unless you're doing that, you're not good enough.
mm,
I feel like
mhm.
you raise like a really interesting I don't know how to word this, but like a contrast where like the harder you work on your image, the more fragile it is. Because
Oh,
like now there
Mhm.
are
absolutely.
more angles
Yeah,
where it can be attacked from,
Yeah.
yeah,
which is super
yeah,
interesting and scary.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Like the more prominent you become, the easier it is to poke holes. Like it's almost like a similar concept. It's not the exact same thing, but if
Hmm.
you work, and I know Barry can speak to this too, and I'm honestly I'm sure actually you can too, Aziz. You even mentioned that in your spaces you're often the only black man in certain areas too. Like it's just like the harder, like when you do good work, the harder you work, the more work will fall on you, and then you'll keep having to do more and more and more, and then it becomes that much easier to slip up, and when you do make a mistake, all of a sudden it's like you're normally perfect, I can't believe you've made a mistake, and then
Or,
you're just
or,
like
or sorry to add, like, of course, you messed up like this.
uh,
You're a black man. You're just,
yeah, yeah,
of course, you
yeah,
do this. Of course, you said that.
yeah, yeah, exactly, after like literal years of you just doing the most constantly, and it's just like I can't believe, like, of course this happened, of course, and it's just like I'm so tired. And you know, so I think it's really interesting that like again this image of perfection, and honestly in One Piece there's often this really strong vision, like this strong theme of like what's it called, the false image. The false image is a really prominent theme in a lot of One Piece, a lot of ways. I'm not going to go into detail all the details, but if you think of even just the way people often talk about like Luffy and the Straw Hats, they sound like a real group of dangerous, competent, horrifying criminals, and you meet them and they're a bunch of
Weirdos.
idiots,
Silly
a bunch
goobers.
of beautiful idiots, a bunch, yeah, a
Yeah.
bunch of beautiful goobers. They're so,
And
like,
also, like, you just reminded me how, like, even like the One Piece fandom itself, like, treats the characters like this. Like, I don't know if you guys like keep track with the discussion on like episode to episode of like, especially if there are fights going on
mm,
in the manga. Some of the fans will literally look at like, let's say, like Zoro's fighting someone. They'd be like, "Oh, Zoro, like, actually, he has some beads of sweat. He's struggling. So like, I think he's not as strong as we think he is." Like
oh
they set
damn,
expectations so high up where like they're going like pixel by pixel to like criticize just to like get like I guess an accurate representation and like then compare that with the representation in their own head, which goes
mm,
back to what we said earlier about what was her name again, Flampe?
Flumpy,
Flampe, yeah,
yeah.
Like how dare you not live up to the image I carved
Imagine
up
you
in
to
my
be.
head?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, straight up,
Mhm.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. No, that's exactly it. And even just the idea of image, it put a lot of pressure on Katakuri in a lot of aspects, including his fights. Because you saw how, like, in his fight against Luffy, he fully said, our fight's stressing me out.
yeah,
Why is it stressing out? Because his fights are supposed to be, quick,
mm-hmm,
decisive,
yeah,
clear. He's
mm-hmm,
supposed to be, almost pretty boy Floyd. You know how like pretty boy, Floyd Mayweather never had any, injuries on his face, which is why he's called pretty boy
mm,
Floyd.
Mhm.
I'm not really going to talk about his controversial like boxing career, but just more so just
please,
the idea like you're supposed to be pristine and aesthetically perfect
mm-hmm,
in all times, including your fights. And to the point where like when he's fighting Luffy, he's just like, this is not going the way it's supposed to.
mm-hmm,
Now it's adding stress to me. So now I'm like, he started getting, a little bit, and we saw even in his fight because he/everyone else put that expectation of him in his fight with Luffy. You saw he started becoming more erratic.
yeah,
He's having less control of his observation haki. He started using much more powerful attacks. He wasn't making the best decisions
Just
for himself
scrambling.
because
yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like in Dungeons and Dragons. Your concentration's broken, so the spell kind of wore off. Like
It's pretty
if your
accurate.
concentrations breaks, then the spell wears off, and that I
Mhm.
think was what's happening for him. But I think Aziz was going to say something, so I'm going to throw it to you.
Oh yeah, sorry, I got was paying attention. Yeah, like this reminds me of like I guess I don't know if it was intentional by Oda or like just the fans like picked up on this and like we ran with it. But back in their fight, like Luffy against Katakuri, I think Luffy went down like 70 plus times, whereas Katakuri like went down 5 times. Because remember, like he had this whole thing where like his back never touches the ground.
Hmm,
Yep.
hmm,
And like this obviously like is a manifestation of like the expectations that others have on him and how like he has to have the strong back that never falls down, like with Whitebeard in the war.
yeah,
How like his
The
back never
story
had
about his
any
back.
injuries because he never like ran away from battles.
Yep.
hmm.
And like it's pretty much like I guess like I'm stuck with this expectation, so like I have to live up to it, or like
Yeah.
everyone around me is not gonna respect me anymore, and they're just gonna like disappear from around me.
It's first of all, like I one of my favorite quotes, like Zoro's like I love Zoro. He's obviously we've talked. Sanji's my favorite character, but I like Zoro too. In fact, I
Mhm.
basically like all the Straw Hats. But like one of my favorite quotes was during like early on when Baratier introduced my beloved Sanji, Sanji's son. Anyway, but like,
Sorry.
but like when he was fighting Mihawk, he turns around. Mihawk's like, "What are you doing?" He's just like scars on the back or the shape of a sword. And
Oh, he
Mihawk's
did
just
this.
like, "Brilliant, yeah!" Like that's just a thing that just keeps showing up. Um, but like when it comes to like Katakuri and those expectations, like I don't know how much can I get into the fight a little bit because there's just so I got
Absolutely. We're
okay.
talking about anime, bro.
Oh, oh my God. Okay, so no, it's
Bro's
just
getting
sort of
hyped.
like no,
Right?
I'm telling you. So like it's just interesting because recently I was watching a YouTube video that was like a lot of people have a lot of issues with One Piece fights in general, and a lot of times they're like, oh, the fights aren't back and forth. They don't do this. They don't the choreography, all this stuff, and I can appreciate some of people's complaints about the fights, but I also think that sometimes, and it's not to say that One Piece is perfect. Oda, like anyone else, has flaws. Um, But I think what people are often missing the point of what One Piece fights are, because generally, in general, they are battle of wills, right? 90% of the time, they're a battle of wills, and whoever's will is strongest is it kind of wins, even if they don't like punch battle better than the other person.
Hacky.
100%.
Have a hacky off.
That they
Oh,
have they have a hacky off, absolutely. And so I remember when I first read the fight with Katakuri, I was kind of like, Luffy didn't really punch him that many times. And I'm like, dog, are you silly? First of all, they're fighting in a mirror world. Katakuri is Luffy's foil. Like they have similar abilities in some ways, obviously not exactly the same, but like ideally, again, this is before we knew the truth behind Luffy's devil fruit. But like his mochi mochi fruit was just superior to the gum gum fruit. Like it did everything Luffy could do, but better. Also, he had future sight. Also, he was bigger. Also, he was more serious. It's just like
no,
it's
more serious.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
almost
yeah,
advantage.
supposed to be more serious. Well, yeah, but like but that's the thing. It's just like Katakuri looks like the kind of main character that people want from a shonen series, right? Like he
Agreed.
kind of looks like that.
Wow,
And then
okay.
and then instead we have Luffy, which again is amazing, obviously, but like it's just like he looks like that main character. Again, if we're going back to Fist of the North Star, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, he really replicates that look. But that's the thing, that is really hard to keep up. You cannot be Jotaro all the time. And so then it's just like what you said. When the fight kept going the way he didn't expect, he got irritated. He got so because he got thrown off. He was becoming more erratic. He was like throwing more Hail Marys. They were powerful, but they were not the precision attacks that he was using, right? Like the more it went on, the more his image, like his own self image too, was starting to break. So when Katakuri ended up losing, because he lost the power of wills, right? Luffy kept getting up, and Katakuri's like, I'm tired. I
And
need to rest.
Also, I would also think that people tend to forget like the less you get hit overall, the less endurance you have to get hit.
That's a good
That's
point.
true. That's actually a really good point.
Because
Like
when he got the first couple hits, Katakuri was visibly like Luffy, like the first couple hits Luffy landed on wasn't very hard, but he
no,
was visibly like shaken from just
yes,
getting hit. He doesn't get
yes.
hit, so how can you take a punch if you've never gotten hit?
That's actually really true. And again, going back to real quick, just my old martial arts days. Like I remember, I actually have a friend who recently took up boxing, and I haven't done martial arts in a long time. I would love to get back into. I hopefully will, but that's another story. But like was talking to this person, and they were just like, I don't want to punch anyone, and no one got a punch. I'm like the sooner you get hit, the better, and the sooner you hit someone, the better, right? Like getting used to getting hit
The
is
first
actually
yep.
it's very handy to being able to withstand and keep going in a fight. And just like you said, the hits weren't that hard, but he got shook. He's like, I don't get hit. What the hell? What's going on here?
You make me think of one of my young guys who's like my protege in Guilty Gear, and like his fear is like blocking and getting hit. And I'm just like, the sooner you learn to block and get hit, the more efficient and skilled you will be as a player and in tournaments. You have to get used to blocking. His thing was just not blocking. So I'm like, I'm gonna keep putting you in situations where you have to block. And he was just like, he just crumbles. If he's able to go on the offense, you can't stop him. But the moment he has to play defense, it's just like someone will take advantage. Someone will pick. If I can pick up on that, someone will pick up on that. This guy's afraid to block.
Yeah.
Even when I play games, I can usually tell if someone's afraid to play defense. I'm just like, you're afraid, and you can exploit it.
Yeah.
Like the sooner, as Ned just said, as soon as you get used to taking a hit, the easier it is. But you just got to get hit first.
And also, like, this is very, like, it translates to many things. Like, for example, a lot of people have a fear of, like,
Failure.
interviews or, like, applying for jobs because they're like, oh, like, what if they tell me no? Well, obviously, like, the more often you get rejected, the more you get used to it, and the more you're like, okay, like, what's the next step?
Yeah.
You start thinking of that instead of, like, just like, oh my God, I don't want to, like, get rejected or whatever. And, like, also on another note, like, a lot of people are, like, very concerned with their online presence, or like even like they have none because they're like, oh, like what if someone says something mean to me on the internet, or like, oh, what if someone like tries to hack me or whatever on the internet, and like that is like pretty much like you paralyze yourself from like your own concerns of the future. And this also like reminds me of something so where I grew up in the Middle East, like I said in the last episode, like we didn't have like a lot of amenities like soccer pitches to play in or like parks or like that stuff. You pretty much had suburbia and sand. So like sometimes when like we had like not enough people to play soccer or something, we just like literally sit in a circle and roast each other until someone cries. Like we had nothing better to do. We just sit around, like get with like some like pop from the convenience store and just like roast each other until someone cries. And like if you cry, you lose.
Mm.
And looking back at it, that was incredibly unhealthy and pretty much cruel. But like I feel like it gave me and my older brothers like very thick skin,
Mm.
because like now like you're not afraid to put yourself out there, because like what are people gonna say to me that I haven't heard already, and
Mm.
like what are they gonna say to me that's actually gonna upset me? And
Mhm.
now you're like whatever, like I'm just gonna like put myself out there and be myself, which like is another like restraint being taken off of you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and you're actually touching on a lot of the things that I've talked to my young guys about, which you guys will get to me when you do like that men's thing that we're planning uh next month in
Mhm.
February. And like a lot
Mhm.
of them, which I can understand where it comes from, right?
Mhm.
But a lot of them have this fear of putting themselves out there to have like an audacious form of masculinity where they just speak up and they say what they think, they say what they feel, but they just have this fear of taking up space, like, oh, what if people don't like me? And it's just like, that's probably, and one of the things I've talked about, I think we talked about this last episode too. Um, the sooner people don't like you, the more when people don't like you is probably the most freeing thing there is.
Because you're
Mm.
less concerned about how they see you and you're more concerned with you being yourself.
Bingo.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
he's just wrapped it up. We can just let's end the episode. Um, no, but for real, like it's
Mm.
but I also understand where it comes from. Where like as a man, if you speak up, you're mansplaining. We have all these negative terms for men. If you speak up in the workspace or whatever it is, or at home or with your family, you're mansplaining. You sit down, you're what's it called, man spreading. And if you there's another man one. Whereas it's basically whenever you do as a man, I think I've used this term with my homegirl. You guys know who I'm talking about, but we
Yeah.
we had this term called penising.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Hey,
I feel like I
penising.
officially hit that age where like new terms spring up, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. What is that? So basically, when you're just in a room and you just have a penis, you're just taking up space, and everyone's just upset. You're just like, oh, this guy's just gonna exist as a man in this room, and it's just like,
How dare he?
Mm.
how dare?
Mhm. Mhm.
Exactly. You're just penising. You're just doing things. So that's a lot of the things I experienced in the workplace. Working with predominantly women, and I would speak from the male experience.
Mm.
So like even not to deviate the conversation too much. I remember one time when I was working, all the women that I was working with, they wanted the boys to stop playing video games. I'm like, most of them are already most of them are already on sports teams at the school that we are in conjunction with, and the last thing they want to do after school and probably finishing a game in whatever sport is to come here in the youth lounge and play sports again.
Mm.
Hmm.
They're trying to be on the PlayStation. Even then, it was kind of funny. They had their own ecosystem. The older kids were on the PS4 and the younger kids were on the PS3. They had like this whole ecosystem. Yeah, boys know how to sort themselves out. Boys slash youth know how to sort themselves out. You put them in a room, they know exactly what they want to do and where they want to go.
Hmm.
But essentially, so they didn't like it, and so I already knew. I was just like, they're not trying to do this. The boys, they're not. They weren't trying to play. They weren't trying to play like dodgeball
Yeah.
after. They're just
But also like
going.
going back to the whole like mansplaining, manspreading thing. I remember like seeing this interesting perspective where like the reason it's like seen as like a negative thing is because a lot of girls are like raised to like take up as little space as possible
Yep.
and not be in other people's like spaces. And so like to them, they're seeing someone who like embodies the complete opposite. And like if you're like raised to be that way, where like you're raised to like not take up space, and you see something like that, you're like, oh, why are they doing the thing that I've been like raised to see bad? And like I'm not saying either of like the extremes are good. Like there's somewhere in the middle that we can meet. But like
Agreed.
that is why a lot of people like see like a mansplaining, sorry, not mansplaining, but like manspreading, and instead of like thinking, oh, like maybe he's taking up too much space because like he's not aware that like, oh, like maybe someone wants to sit next to him, and like now I
Mhm.
can't because I don't want to like be in his space and bother him. So like it's
Mhm.
like the two extremes coming together and like then causing, I guess, some sort of like unspoken conflict.
Yeah. A lot
That's
of
pretty
friction.
much all the
Yeah,
gender
and
stuff
like
that
it
we're doing.
it
Is just
actually goes back
okay.
to the episode,
Mm.
to the previous episode where what's her name? Yeah, Pudding, how like she has to do everything her mom tells her because like she's just there for her mom's like, I guess, will and desires, and like she has to
Extension.
take exactly
Mhm.
take as little space as possible, not like up like be a good daughter for your mom, like do whatever she wants, be a good
Mhm.
daughter-in-law to the German,
Yeah.
just like a little piece to be taken from one end to another.
Yeah.
And I just want to add to your point, with a lot of my surrogate daughters, I think like, if I'm on the phone with any of them, it's for like 1 to 3 hours. And I would say about 45 to 50 minutes of them dancing around what they want to say. And I'm just like, just say it. Just say it.
Yeah.
Because, I remember I was on the phone with one of them. It was today's, because, like I lost track of days. Like I told you guys, I was so locked in with the social media stuff. So I think we spoke Thursday and we were just talking about something. And then I described it. And then she's like, oh, I don't like the way it sounds. I'm like, I'm not trying to say things for the way I don't word things I don't curtail my words to people's feelings. I curtail words to describe things for what they are and what they act and what it actually is. Because the more, and this is a thing which I have an issue with African culture, we tend to more so focus on like, oh, someone was offended. It's like, I don't care if you're offended. I'm trying to reduce my suffering. So the shorter I have to talk, the quicker we can get to the point, and the sooner we can get to the solution. I'm all about. I know it's not a perfect mindset, but like I'm all about efficiency.
No, I see what you mean, but also I feel like for example, recently at work we had this discussion on because like I said, I work in the government and like we do a lot of like public facing things, and
Yeah.
we do projects. So, like in projects, like you have to talk with the like whoever lives in the neighborhood, like the municipality. So you have like a lot of people involved, and we had a discussion on the term stakeholder. Because back in the day, that term was literal. Like someone would take a stake and put it in the land and say, "Okay, like this is to
Yeah.
signify that this is mine."
I was
And
thinking
now,
it had to do with stocks. I don't know why. That makes sense. That makes far more sense what I was thinking. Okay.
yeah, and then like someone broke down that like, oh, like the term has like some colonial history to it, and like
Yeah.
this history has like negative connotations, and obviously is just not a good term to use, even if you're using it like neutrally. So
Mhm.
we're not trying to like say, oh, you can't say this word because like it makes you a bad person, but like no, we can think of better words so like we don't like unnecessarily say things that might upset others.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, absolutely. Like and just even thinking about the way communication and conversations happen with like because I again like therapy, I work with men and women, and boys and girls, depending on like just like I work with a lot of different folks, and it's interesting considering the conversations that are sometimes had, specifically when it comes to taking up space. And I find that's actually like a problem right now for both like for a lot of different like for like frankly a lot of different genders, but in different kind of spaces in different
Agreed.
ways, which is really fascinating because right
Agreed.
now, like again, having the case where a lot of boys are like some boys I talk to are afraid to take up space because
Yep.
of that perception of being feared and and taking away other people's voices. A lot of the
Yep.
some of the women and femmes are afraid of taking up space because they've just been kind of hammered down to their like you are essentially a tool for your family, much like pudding. Like
Mhm.
right, it's just like your existence is only for this, and anything less than that is absolutely selfish, right?
Yep.
Um, and then for a lot of the like LGBTQS plus folks, it's just like I'm afraid I'm going to die, so if I take up space, people might kill me, right?
Mhm.
Or
So
excommunicated.
I'm sorry,
Or excommunicated.
or
Family,
excommunicated.
friends, whatever it is. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So it's really interesting. And so it's just like, where does that balance actually land for a lot of
Mhm.
people? And I think, again, obviously everyone's situation is different, but I think oftentimes a balance lands with authenticity. Are you going and being your authentic self, taking up space in as an authentic person? And then it's like, hey, when you look back at what you did and said, are you okay with it? Right. And I think like a lot of times people are very aware of what makes sense to them morally. Obviously, there's all kinds of people talk about situations, but it's just like people know when they're being untrue to themselves. And when you're untrue to yourself, like it's almost like you're fighting yourself on the inside. That's a fight you'll never win, and it causes so much turmoil, so much stress, so much what's the
Are
word
you
I'm
thinking
looking?
of the term? Would the term cognitive dissonance
That's
be?
exactly the word I was trying to say. Yes.
Got you, bro.
Wow. Thank you, thank you. I'm also going to just take off my therapist chair, just throw it away. Anyway, but yeah, this is so much cognitive dissonance, and that is incredibly stressful. And what's interesting about cognitive dissonance too is it's a really great way to disassociate, and so it causes you stress, but you don't notice it. The second the again, go back to Katakuri, the second that stress, like your image, that cognitive, it gets pointed out, that's when you start getting stressed out, right? The second it started cracking, because Katakuri's on autopilot, like he's on, he's on, but he's on autopilot because he's so used to being the way he is. The second something this goofy rubber man going, I'm gonna rubber you to death, he's just like,
This goofy rubber man.
fuck.
I hope I can make that a clip. I hope I can. That's a
I
great.
forgot.
Also, I really want to go
about
back to something. I want to go back to something Neru brought up earlier about how you said there's a lot of boys that like are so scared to take up space because like they don't want to like seem as I guess scary or unpleasant.
Misogynist.
Yeah, and like it really made me think of like the term like the gentle giant. How like sometimes you meet guys or like guys who are like so like 6'5", 6'7", like they're like big and scary, but at the same time they're the gentlest people you've ever met because like their whole life they're like, oh, like I don't want to seem scary, I don't want to like put people off, so I gotta like go the extra mile. Like on top of being a good person, I have to be incredibly gentle and soft with everyone.
Almost
So people like
benevolent.
exactly. So people
Without
like don't
boundaries.
like so yeah. So people like don't I guess avoid me, which which like is like I guess is very similar to what Katakuri has to go through, where like you have to like be like act correctly, like come correct at all times.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like now you like risk not having like I guess not having like I guess the social web that you want to have for your own mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Oh man. You guys just cook. You guys. Anyways,
Bro,
sorry.
you're the one providing the kitchen, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You brought the kitchen, you brought the tools, brought the ingredients. You're just like, all right.
Exactly.
Making it. But yeah, definitely dumb rubber band. No, but you know, when we're looking at Katakuri, you know, we're always seeing there's very specific terms that are associated to him. You know, like someone's like he's so vigilant. You know, he's there's just so many words, but basically he's always on. He's vigilant. He's prudent. He's calculated, regal, stoic. Like all these words, and you know, if you look at the antonym. So antonym means opposite, antagonist, anti. Opposite for people who are listening and watching. Antonyms is like the opposite of a word, just like how synonym is another word for a word. So an antonym for these things is often, you know, to be relaxed, to be preoccupied, to be jovial, to be silly, right? And too often, you know, when it comes to like how the archetypes, when a lot of the, you know, common archetypes you have for masculinity has to do with men fitting in that role of, you know, being, you know, being stoic, so on and so forth. And all those things, the opposite, aren't really, we don't know how to associate those things to men and masculinity. And in fact, you know, it made me think of, I can't find it, but it was a video of it was a black couple, US. I believe they're African-American, FBA. And the wife was bringing her husband a meal. Like, you know, those video things of her bringing the meal and he's like sitting down and he's sitting down with his Xbox remote and there's bring him meals. And in the video and there's some fantastic meals. Every time he has his PlayStation remote, Xbox remote. I can remember his Xbox because how often do you see people with Xbox remotes on like Instagram reels and skits? And when I went to the comments, it was just so much vitriol. You know, like, why are you bringing him meals? Why is he relaxing? Who does he think he is? Why are you working so hard for a guy who was not doing anything? Just everything. And this is not just coming from women. This is coming from men too. The men are even just like, who is he? Why is he sitting around playing video games? Why can't he sit around and play video games?
It's like it's a clip. What the heck?
Also, Eb, with all due respect, your biggest mistake was going on the internet and looking at the comment section. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I love comment sections. So like, there's 2 points I get to that. So one, I go to comment section because I also get a good laugh. I don't know if you guys do that too. I love comment sections. Just like, this is funny, but the comments, I'll even take screenshots and I'll just send it to people. Like I send you guys some stuff all the time.
Yeah, this is true.
Section. But the reason I brought up the comment section is because one of my young guys liked the video. And I know we never had this conversation. We never had this verbally, but I know, knowing him, he went into the comment section and he saw those things. I think he was 21 at the time, and he's reading those things. And I can only imagine. And there's some other stuff I've seen. When I'm on social media, I pay attention to what my young guys like because it informs me of what they're seeing and then how to have dialogue with them. So I remember seeing those comments of just everyone just ripping into the guy. Lo and behold, he's like a top lawyer and his wife is a stay-at-home wife. but we don't really associate the idea of men being able to relax, to have fun, to be preoccupied, to not be on, to not be, attentive. We don't really
Gotta be
associate
grinding all
those
the time.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're always supposed to be on, basically, because like when do we associate the word leisure and fun to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King?
No, not even a little bit.
I don't even know what they did for fun, if they did things for fun. And
Yeah,
look
that's
how highly we regard them, right?
Yeah.
So when we take that and we apply it to ourselves and what our community applies to us, why you should be fighting white supremacy or something. You should be fighting some bigotry somewhere. Why are you playing video games, right? Like, and that goes back into even our families, right? Like, I know for all of us, it's just like, oh, you still play video games like an 8-year-old? Why don't you? I was talking with my friend, and I was just like, it's almost as if our hobbies are supposed to be like going to work, paying
Going to war.
Sorry?
Our hobby should be going to war.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
going to war, and then when you're done, go to work. Somehow after the war, you go you
hunt an
hobby
animal.
for work, and then I don't know, you pay some bills, and then I guess Christianity would be like a hobby, even though it's not like a faith or a lifestyle. It's a hobby. You just pray, and then I don't know, maybe watch sports. Well, depends, because some women also get angry about those things too, and then go to sleep. Right. So so just long-winded of just saying, it's just like the idea of just being the full scope of a human being. We don't really, and when I say we, like I said, this is the comment section. Even men are ripping into him too. Is just we have a hard time seeing a man just relax.
Yeah.
Even sometimes I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Too,
but also, I feel like on the internet, like a good chunk of it is posturing. Like a man saying, like, "Oh, why is he relaxing? If I was your husband, I wouldn't do that." You know what I mean?
Oh,
The
God.
virtual signaling. The virtual signaling.
Yeah. That's so funny. Like, I cannot do comments because they just make me so mad. Like, I like, bless you for being like, at some point I become an old man yelling at a cloud. Like I'm just like, why are you taking the context?
If I could jump in on that point, I think about maybe 10% of comment section that I interact with. Because one thing I've learned from real life, which I applied to social media, I've seen is it's like, if someone has already irrationally, and I was talking to the same daughter about it the other day, because she was talking about how, like, I think someone in her work is just not listening to her. I'm like, if this person already irrationally came to the point where you're the problem, the burden of proof is on you, and you can't convince them otherwise. If someone's already rationalized themselves into a certain position, there's nothing you can do. I was like, you know what?
Yeah,
live your life. Live your life.
See, like, this is one of my favorite parts of having a meme page. Sometimes, like, a meme of mine will blow up, and people will argue about, like, let's say a plot point or like a character, like it's their own family member, and then, like, sometimes I have to, like, type, like, literally reply to them. It's a drawing, right? Like, I'm sure you have bills to pay, bro.
What was I doing? I can't remember what it was. Yes, I remember. The first time, and I think the only time someone called me retarded on social media was like, I can't remember the details. That was basically who would win between Kakashi and Maito Guy from Naruto. And I was like, I think Guy would win. Like, he almost beat Madara. Yo, someone came and was like, you're retarded, dude. I was just like, they're not real people. And even if they were real people, why are you calling me retarded? Retarded is a very charged word. This is the situation. It's not when someone insulted your mother. Not to say it's okay to ever use it, but like, this is when I'm talking about Kakashi. I was like, I didn't even respond to the person because I was just like, this is
they're coming from a point of view where you're like, there's no rationale.
You're right.
Yeah,
like, honestly, I enjoy like these kind of comments because, like, I love, like, throwing them off, like, are you having a bad day kind of a reply. Because if someone comes at you like that, like, it's obviously not you. Like, something else went wrong in their day, and like they're just, that energy like just flowed out in your direction.
That's so funny. That's actually reminds me when I very long time ago played Halo online with randoms. Like, almost never. Like, it's just not my thing.
I'm loving where this is going.
Oh no, it's just like these 13-year-old kids just like going on like on mic, just saying like horrifically racist, sexist, like homophobic things, just awful stuff. And me as a budding therapist, like, wow, that's a really interesting thing that you went to. I'm wondering if there's some suppressed like rage there from like some abuse you may have experienced as a child. Or I'm like, you have a lot of resentment towards women. Like, did something happen with your own family? Did your mother do that? And then they just freak out and then just
exactly what I mean. Because now it's non-argument. Now they're being in question.
yeah, I just be like, that's so interesting. Like I just act like really concerned and then ruin these poor
I
kids' days.
I did that to someone in Guilty Gear. I don't engage in hate mail, but I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? It was like 2 years ago,
Hmm.
and I was like, you know what? I got time.
Hmm.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's I did so like he was just saying some crazy stuff like, oh, your parents died in a car accident. I'm like, actually, they were alive. So
Damn.
and then eventually I was just like, since like online is like whatever way of how you're trying to deal with things,
Mhm.
I'm gonna report you to Sony.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they just like, no.
I took the message, I took the most inflammatory message he sent me,
Hmm.
and I was just like, I'm gonna get you reported.
Yeah,
Good job
yeah,
for ruining your own safe
mm,
space, quote unquote, and
yeah,
coming for me for a
yeah.
I know,
video
like,
game.
I know it's a reach, but this reminds me of like when in the middle of the fight, it was the what is it called again? That lunch hour time or that snack
Yeah.
time?
Oh, I
Mediante.
want to talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
and then like
yes.
Katakuri's like, oh shit, it's Sam. And then he just hung Luffy on the wall, and then Luffy's like, get me out. He's like, let me finish my meal. Or
Yep.
I think it was the
But
nap, right? His
Was
siesta
it
or
not?
something.
I know he trapped Luffy under the mochi, and then
yeah,
he
yeah.
was, he
Yeah,
was just like, and then he was just like, yeah, I need to get my merienda.
Meriende.
yeah. Luffy's like, get me out. He's like, cool story, bro.
right. No, but
And that
that's
was my.
exactly. I guess we can transition into that because
Mhm.
so one aspect is as much as he's disciplined, he's also disciplined enough to give himself that space,
Yes.
right? And this is a thing I really espouse for men to understand is that like she's not your therapist.
Hmm.
She's not going to her femininity and nurturing nature is not going to heal you and fix you. You got to work on your shit on your own. You have to create. Yes, she should add to your peace. She shouldn't like it shouldn't be war for when you walk into the house, but you need to create like peace and space for yourself. So like one of my favorite academic scholars, Dr. T.S. Johnson, he said like black men find your peace. Like for me, this here, see, let me move out of the way. This space, see all this gaming and this is my piece. You have to create that space for yourself intentionally. It's not something you can do passively. It takes a lot of intentionality. So him creating, that mediende, right? Because even what did where is it? Yeah, there it is. Nobody has written Katakuri sama eating.
Hmm.
What a prudent man. Once again, prudent, wise,
Hmm.
right? When
Hmm.
eating, people usually let their guards down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He created that space to let his guard down.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you guys want to speak on just the mediende aspect of things.
Yeah. I am. Again, like I like something just I want to say just from the whole personal experience thing. And first of all, I want to point out I am not throwing shade at my mom about this too, because like my parents, like ever you have talked about this, like my parents have back home experienced a lot of stuff. And so their whole push is often like literally survival. And I will also say that they have grown a lot. Like and again, because both Airbear and are Nigerian, right? And we've talked, and my parents have grown a lot, right?
Igbo too.
So I'm sorry.
And Igbo.
And Igbo, yes, we're both Igbo. So you can imagine if you, again, large story for another time, but if you can imagine if you're Igbo and you lived through 1960 to 1967, you've experienced some shit. So
Without going into it, go on.
yeah, yeah. And so there's this. It's kind of survival for them, like, and constantly survival. If you're not doing that, you're not surviving, right? And like I said, my parents have grown a lot, so I give them so much credit. But there was this time. So this was after I had done, like, I just completed my third degree
No big
in a
deal.
Oh
in
wow.
a row. And I was tired. Like it was literally just finished my last exam. I just like sat down, cracked open a beer, turned on the Xbox, started playing Halo, and it wasn't even 5 minutes that I was just in that position. My mom walked in the room and she's just like, she looks at me and then she looks kind of wistfully to the sky and is just like, where we are in life is how is a result of how we spend our time, and just walked away. And I'm like, I was just like,
Oh my god. That was
what?
some psychic damage.
Oh, Doug, I didn't even know what to do. I was angry
Emotional
and
damage.
Yeah.
like I was angry. I was confused. I was sad. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. I didn't know what to do with myself for about 20 minutes after that.
I think everyone has like a quota for how much they can be offended, where you know what to do. And once you go past that quota, you just don't know what to do. You're just like, oh,
you're just confused. I couldn't even play Halo. I'm like, I don't even know what to do right now. And so like when Katakuri being seen on his back, looking like a total goober, and he looked like he was having a wonderful time. That's the thing. This is the thing that I love about Oda, because like, and again, I'm not gonna throw shade at people for liking what they like about One Piece, but when I see people doing the real, like, I like One Piece for like the super badass moments and all the cool fights and all these things, I'm like, okay, that's great, but also there's a whole other part of it. Like Katakuri, like a lot of these men, you're only looking at a small part. Like One Piece is all these things, and Katakuri looked like such a One Piece character when he was on his back, singing his little song, eating his donuts. He looked like he was having it was so cute. It was adorable. He looked so relaxed. And that's the thing that broke a lot of people. like the chefs, like his flambe and her little fan club. And it immediately, like, I'm going to turn this into a scandal. And so that was just like, he was so upset. He's like, I gotta kill the people that saw this shit. And again, like,
he
it
was
the chef
triggered.
He was he exactly, like, he was not stoic. He was not doing badass cool. He was angry. He was scared. He was like, I need to cover this up immediately. So like, that's how like Katakuri is so strong and stoic, but he is incredibly fragile. He is so very fragile. And so, we're talking about trauma, right? Again, we could get into the story later, but like, because I don't want to like keep talking, I want other people talk, but like, hypervigilance is a result of trauma. When you are hypervigilant, it is because you've experienced trauma and you're trying not to let that trauma ever happen again, regardless of whether it's happening or not. That is exactly
something bit you in the forest. You're going to be constantly hypervigilant because who wants to get bit again?
Exactly.
And I feel like Oda did a great job at like having this manifest in his fighting style. Like he's so traumatized that like his future sense is like why he doesn't get hurt. Like he knows when punches are gonna come, and also like we said earlier, like it makes him like less durable. So now he can't sustain much damage.
Yeah.
So like I feel like, for example, if you look at other like series like Death Note, like all the battles are like mental discussions or like mental debates, but like I feel like Battle Shonen, like they take this concept and like every like physical engagement is like a conversation.
Yeah, a good manga,
like
a good shonen manga could do that.
Exactly, and then like you see how like Luffy and Katakuri, even though like the devil fruits are like very close to each other, like the way they fight is very different. We have Katakuri who like from trauma is like vowed to like never get hurt again, or like never be seen in like a vulnerable position again, and then you have Luffy who like after every battle, he comes out like the first pancake you try to make, just completely beat and battered.
Yeah.
But like this is what made him like stronger and more resilient.
Yeah,
like
Luffy,
it was a very interesting contrast to see like at the end, like last third of the fight.
No, absolutely. Luffy learned how to take a punch. He learned how to take a punch very, very early, both literally and metaphorically, right? I love everything you're saying. Like, it's again, like this dichotomy between the two of them. It is like, again, when I look back at this fight after my first look, Luffy didn't really punch him that many times, and I look back again, I was just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, it's literally all there. It's not even subtle a little bit. They're fighting in a mirror world, and the two of them are mirroring each other's abilities. There's the goofy rubber man. There's the very stoic mochi man. Like like again, Katakuri is a direct foil to Luffy. And the thing is that Katakuri's will is very strong when it's not being tested, because he doesn't get tested. The second that is shattered even a little bit, that's when he starts getting stressed out. I love the wording that he's like, it's starting to stress me out. It's not. It doesn't seem significant until you realize that he's being serious. He's actually stressed because things are slightly off, he can no longer predict exactly what's going to happen. And now his whole world is falling apart. That's when men in his position start to catastrophize, right? Where they're just like, if I can't see everything, then this will happen. Then my sister will get hurt. My whole family get hurt. Big Mom will get mad and she might steal my soul. And then all my brothers and sisters will be in danger. And then the whole Big Mom pirates are all dead.
So Nedu, I appreciate you. So no, because you really made a really good point in the sense of, this is why I love Oda's writing, is the nuance, right? It's not so, because with a lot of the things we see on social media and just even conversations I've had, working in the field, it's like, oh, why doesn't he just open up? Why doesn't he just share? Why doesn't he just emote in the ways that like I perceive men should emote? And it's just like, well, the reason he's not is because there's people he has to protect. That's what I loved about what Oda did with Katakuri. It's like, why are there these men who, like, even just the idea of him never being on his back, we you'd think like, oh, this is so fictitious and unreal. I'm sure we've all heard those stories. Like, I've never seen dad cry. I've never seen dad look sad. I've never seen dad in the midst of a day of work. We have all these mythological perceptions about some of the men in our family, right? And it comes from having to maintain that image to the point where, you pointed out at Aziz, like, Katakuri got knocked and he instantly realized what was about to happen. And he rather like almost crack his skull on the floor and flip rather than land on his back, just because of that image. Like, he was constantly, his image was constantly being tested. And the reason he has that image, as Rudy said, is you did this to protect us. That's what's not talked about. It's like, why are men doing this? Like, there's a reason. It's not just because he doesn't know how to emote or whatever it is. It's because he's doing it for a particular reason that maybe you might not realize. So I just wanted to say that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Man, what a character, honestly. Oda really cooked with them, man.
Yeah.
Him and Sanji really made me appreciate Whole Cake Island. Also, I also want to say a point, like, Luffy probably has the best moments in fights, but he probably has, to me, some of the least enjoyable fights, because it's always like protracted over like 85 episodes.
Yeah.
I put it on Twitter, I'm like, Sanji probably has some of the best fights in One Piece consistently. Like,
just saying, I do have a 3-hour long cut of the fight between Katakuri and Luffy, like, on Google Drive, if you're interested.
Please share that.
Just the pure fight, nothing else.
It's 3 hours. Are you? No, actually, because you
it's 3 hours.
That's ridiculous. I can believe
it's like Frieza and Goku. Holy crap!
And you know what's the funny part about that fight? In the manga, it was like 10 chapters.
Yeah, it wasn't that.
Like, if they adapted it as they adapt anime nowadays, it would have been like 2 episodes.
For those reasons, I'm looking forward to the Wit Studios like
man, that
adaptation. Yeah.
My only gripe is that they made Usopp even lighter, which is so unnecessary.
That I don't like that. That's really that bothers me.
After Stretch Up, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
as soon as the character designs came out, everyone was like flipping out. Like we had one black dude. Come on.
Yeah, like, why you got to do this to us?
Yeah.
Anyway, that bothers me.
I'm definitely gonna check that out.
We already lost Tant Robin.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Robin's like very much Middle Eastern. But yeah, no, I really love just the aspect of Katakuri having to maintain that image. And like I said, like, a lot of people think it's exaggerated. It's not. Like, there's a lot of men who just like, I've never seen dad cry or whatever it is. I've seen my dad cry twice, and it made me humanize him. I was like, first of all, I remember the first time I saw my dad cry was like Michael Jackson's funeral, and he cried. And first of all, I remember his eyes. First of all, I think I saw his eyes water, and I was genuinely like bewildered. I was like, what's going on? And then my mom handed him tissue. I'm like, you only give that to people who cry. What's going on here? And I was like, oh shoot, you cry? You do that? I was genuinely blown away by my dad crying. But after when the second time he cried, which was like when he had like a major stroke, he like just wept in my arms. It didn't set me aback. Like, unlike the first time, I was just genuinely confused. I was like, what are you doing? Why do you need tissue? Like, you need to blow your nose?
Yeah.
Second time, I was like, oh, okay. It helped me humanize it. But, not everyone is willing to receive that. And I guess we could transition to Flampe, but I don't know if you guys are ready to get into Flampe, if there's anything you guys wanted to say about that.
Oh, I was going to say, like, this, it reminds me of, like, Kendrick's album from 2 years ago, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and his song Father Time, where he says, there's a couple of bars where he's like, his mom died. I asked him, Dad, why are you going to work so soon? He said, son, we got bills to pay. Life ain't got no silver spoon. And, like, it's just something where, like, you just feel like you're not allowed to show a moment of weakness.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like, society won't let you to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. And so, like I said, it's really important for like to create your own meriende. Like I said, for me, it's the basement. I got my game station here, with all my consoles and my gaming laptop. I got my surround sound. I know one of my homies, it's for him, it's going to the gym. I know for Jordan, who's on the podcast, who he, for him, it's just sitting down and watching anime. Whatever it is, you got to find that meriende for you, and you have to maintain that, right? Like as much as like Katakuri was in a bit of a fragile state, you saw how like he was just like, you know what? I'm gonna be 3:45. doing this, because often we tend to disregard ourselves. Like even for me now, because of where I was working before, I was constantly working. So I actually took like I realized in the first couple weeks, but now it took about a month for me to implement it, is that like I had to train myself to not work while I eat. I stopped working while, even like when, like when we're doing these episodes and stuff, like, how I rewatch episodes, if it's a show like I'm about to record, I actually like all these whole cake arcs, I didn't watch it while I was eating. I didn't rewatch it again as I was eating. I was like, no, you're allowed to watch another show, but you cannot watch whole cake while you're eating. You cannot do this while you're eating. You cannot make notes. You cannot search up stuff on. You have to just eat. You can watch a show. Maybe you can play a game. You can listen to music, but you cannot do this. This is your time. And I've had to be really strict on myself. I'm like, let me just, search up, a design on Instagram, or let me just, Google. No. You can do that after you're done eating and you digest it. So I think it's very important for us to learn how to just learn how to just relax, I guess.
Yeah. I really like that, because like one thing that I often say to people I'm working with, especially when they have that struggle to find their own Marianne day, like when they struggle to find that, oftentimes I say, like, in order to support people and kind of conceptualizing it, sometimes I'll say like, hey, that doctor appointment that you really need to go to, like, this is literally just important. Treat it in your mind in the same way, right? Like, it has the same level of importance as making sure you're physically healthy. And I'm like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm dead serious when I say that. And that's actually helped a couple of folks that I work with that have that struggle to maintain their own self-care, their own self-love, their own, because we're trained just not to. We're trained to to not prioritize it.
It's a lot easier to disregard yourself.
100%. It's like, well, I it's fine if I suffer as long as everyone else is fine.
But not my sister or something. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's legitimately Katakuri, who's like, it's fine if I'm having a hard time. It's fine if I'm stressed under Big Mom. It's fine if I have to do all these things as long as everyone else is okay. But like you said, though, he really does stick to that. Like, he's just like, nope, now's the time and I have to do this. And that's like integral to his own ability to maintain what he's doing, which is something which was pretty cool.
Yeah, this motif is carrying from the previous episode. We said the exact same stuff about Sanji.
About how it break it down. I didn't make the
connection. Sorry, about like how he will put everything else on, like, I guess the his expectations and others expectations and what he's supposed to do over his own well-being.
Yeah.
And carrying on with Katakuri right now, because like, I guess like for both families, like, they were like, Katakuri is like the muscle of the family, and Sanji, like, in that arc, was like, he was the chess piece that his father really needed to like have everything move on. And with Zeph being held hostage, like, he had no say in the matter, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And then so when we break down the idea of having to maintain this image for others, we're seeing his relationship with Brule and Flampe, and it's truthful. There's some experiences where you may, depending on who it is and depending on who's around you, that vulnerability will be used against you, right? Just going back on the idea of, why doesn't he just open up? Does he have a space to open up? Does he feel safe to open up? What does safe for him even look like? Also, I also want to tell people, because people are probably hearing us say meriende a lot, and they're like, what the fuck is that? Okay, so meriende is apparently a Portuguese word. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, because I heard the word in an anime in Japanese. So I could be, before people are like, these guys are fucking idiots. It's pronounced like, none of us speak Portuguese, okay, buddy? I don't know how it's pronounced. But meriende is supposed to mean basically a light lunch / heavy snack, which is what Katakuri is eating. He obviously eats full meals, otherwise he wouldn't look the way he does. But he's eating all forms of donuts, because that would be considered a light snack. Sorry, heavy snack / light lunch, which is why it's always around, I think it was 3 p.m. or something like that, where he would have it. Yeah. So just want people to give that before, like, what is this?
Right. That's a good point. Yeah.
Because like, I know, like, sometimes like my kids will call me like, what the fuck are you talking about, Evan? I'm like, first of all, you didn't watch the show, so you can't get mad at me for not explaining what this word is. So, but Meriende was fair. But like, Flampe goes into, so Flampe is one of the younger sisters, the quote unquote ideal sister, and for her, she has no idea who her brother actually is. She has
Mhm.
no idea who Katakuri actually is, to the point where we're talking about Katakuri being more of himself in this fight, which is why I think, now that I think about it, I think that's one of the things he really enjoyed. He initially didn't like how Luffy
Mm.
pushed him outside of his comfort zone, but over
Yeah.
time he was like, actually, I like being outside of my comfort zone. I actually
Yeah.
like this. I actually like stress. I actually like
Mhm.
being pushed. I actually like things not going my way. I like this experience. I'm actually reveling in it. And then Flambe, because she doesn't know, she's like, oh, Katakuri probably wants this fight to end in like 9 seconds.
Yeah.
She blows that numbing thing into Luffy's leg, and then Luffy gets
Mm.
injured. Katakuri gets triggered to the point where he gets mad at Flampe. Flampe in her head, where is it? She was saying like, oh, she had like, and we have these experiences. I've even had some of those experiences with my wife where she'll have like a certain perception of me. And so, and even like just some of the women in my life in general, where they just have a certain perception of me, even past relationships. And so Flampe, she blows the thing into Luffy's leg. Luffy gets hit by Katakuri's spinning spear thing. I don't remember what
Trident.
that's called. Yeah, sorry.
You
The
believe?
trident.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Trident. They named so many attacks I don't remember any of them anymore, except for I think strong arm.
No, that's the name of the spear thing.
Oh,
Yeah, Trike is three.
oh
I
yeah,
think it
you
has
watched the
the
whole
three
3
things, right?
hours. So you remember?
I mean, I watched it years ago.
Oh, okay. You have good memory. I
Mhm.
love it. The names, normally I can remember some attacks. I don't remember any of their attack names.
I only remember it because like that day, like I looked it up to like know what it is because I'm like, oh, like I've seen this. Because what's his face? Ariel's dad in like My Little Mermaid had it. I'm like, okay, I've seen this twice. I need to know what it is.
Yes.
Okay.
And also because like that gum or whatever, that mint trident.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
oh, so that's where the name comes from.
Mhm.
I just love etymology.
I respect it.
I've been
As a-
blown away right now.
with an
Trident.
yeah.
That
It has,
is
like, three
wow.
whatever.
Wow.
Mhm.
Double entendre. I didn't even think about that. That's
Yeah.
wow.
Mm.
Okay. Wow. I'm blown
Mhm.
away. Okay, anyways, yeah. So Flampe is just saying, what was it? Like in her own perception of Katakuri, she was saying, where is it? It just had it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. She was gonna Katakuri's gonna walk up to her and
Yeah.
pat her on the head, and he's gonna say, "Oh, you're such a thoughtful, well-behaved girl. That's my most beloved sister." And what ended up happening is, Katakuri is angry. He takes off his scarf. He gets mad at, Flampe for doing that, for interrupting his fight with Luffy. And then, he stabbed himself to even the playing field between him and Luffy. And even Luffy's like, yo, bro, we're pirates. You don't have to fight even. Like,
Yeah.
But also, I really like that scene because, like, in his mind, he's like, "Oh, like if I took this, this handout, I won't be as manly as they see me as. It'll pretty much confirm that Luffy is stronger and manlier than me. So I have to level the playing field and beat him like on equal terms, because otherwise, like, I needed an advantage to beat him,
Mhm.
which
Yep.
will like undermine his own image."
Yeah.
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 And,
And then
and
also, like, he just didn't is and then to add to it, he doesn't want that against the first person. I guess you could say Luffy's the first man / opponent to see Katakuri for who he is. Because I'm willing to bet, with Katakuri's reputation, when he's fighting other people, they're already intimidated, they're scared, they're
Yeah.
already into the fight thinking they're going to lose. And Luffy's like, nah, bro, I'm about to
Yeah,
surpass you.
yeah, that's I can do this all day kind of mentality.
Exactly.
That panel where they were where like I think that may have been the end of a chapter, because the panel like is like burned into my brain where Katakuri changes his stance, where he goes like this and he kind of squares up,
Yes.
and he's
yes.
just like, yeah, he's just like, all right, sorry about that, let's fight for real. And Luffy's like, hey, it's a
Oh, I
pirate
love
fight.
that one.
We
Yeah.
good, like that they squared up like on equal terms for the first time during that fight. Katakuri was having fun and he was being himself, and it's like you said, like that Luffy was probably the first man to actually like see him who he was. And again, as readers, whenever you're reading One Piece, if Luffy sees someone, you have to pay attention, because he's like legitimately very good judge of character, like almost to an ungodly level. So
yeah,
and-
it's like his superpower. Like
And
people
this is-
talk about him being.
I like how you brought this up because like equal to like hockey being willpower, like this equates to like what's the name of the conqueror hockey, where like you just look at someone like they kind of freeze in their place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Conqueror's hockey.
Exactly, yeah. So I feel like
Hoshoku, something like that. Yeah.
Hoshoku no whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like the same vein of like hockey being willpower, like this being you seeing how people for who they are. Because back in Freshman Island, like he saw all these 50,000 pirates of like fodder. So like immediately like he did that hockey and like they all fell down.
They just
Yep.
they just collapsed
Hmm
because they're
Yep.
like, you're nothing, dude.
Yeah.
And their will was not strong enough at all. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, like it is being seen is actually something like, so we talk about this as well, like, and I talk this a lot. So a lot of times when young people, like something that's really harmful for young people, and of course young men for sure, is not being seen, like not being seen for who you are. And that causes all kinds of like struggles, and of course you kind of put barriers and all kinds of things to kind of like protect yourself as an adult and as a young person, and those kind of go into adulthood, right? But then when someone actually sees you, it's like it can be really, like, again, like we, even when you're talking, whether it's a friend, whether it's like a coworker, whether it's like even a rival, right? Someone sees you for who you truly are. It's like a very freeing moment, right? And
Liberating.
that was the moment when
It also
rose up.
builds like your self-esteem.
It really does, because then you're just like, wow, someone's seeing me and they're also still looking at me. They didn't look away.
That's
They didn't start
perfectly
insulting
it.
me.
Someone's
They
seeing
didn't.
me and they're still looking at me. Sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly it, right? Like they're not looking away, they're not making fun of me, they're accepting me. And that's what Luffy did with Katakuri. And Katakuri was like, I'm gonna, like, again, like that panel is just like absolutely wonderful.
And like that's pretty much when you can see like the real fight actually started.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah, because
Mhm.
before it was kind of like Luffy, I guess you could say, proving himself
Mhm.
to Katakuri, and after that, because Luffy was, and to
Wait,
kind of
didn't he
go back,
exactly say like I will not underestimate you anymore?
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Hmm
and
Yeah.
also Luffy was probably, because even Prospero like never made fun of his older brother, would never made fun of Katakuri for his face, but Luffy didn't even say a thing about it.
You didn't even comment, yeah.
He didn't even comment on it. He was just like, all right, let's get this started. And Katakuri is like, let's get this started. And then,
Yeah.
it's like square up, right? He
Yeah.
started even using the spear. He was just like, it's just mano a mano.
Yeah.
And
I have
you
to
could see
say,
that. Sorry, go
that
on.
trope in fiction where like the two combatants like fight each other but at the same time they respect each other very much is one of my favorite of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
bro, like I fuck with you, but at the same time I want to fight you right now because like you're so cool though. You're so cool
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that's being one of my boys. Like, I remember we would just we would always spar intellectually in terms of our views, and then also do it in terms of like games and stuff. Like, we were always just constantly trying to one up each other. We always respect each other, but I was just like, bro, if I'm gonna lose to someone, it can't be you. It can't be you. But at the same time, you're the only person I could lose to.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
refuse to lose to anybody but you, because that means that's the worst thing.
Yeah.
Just summarize Goku and Vegeta.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. Yep. Sonic and
Mhm.
Shadow, Goku,
Yeah.
Vegeta,
Yeah.
Naruto, and so you always just have like, nah,
Yeah.
not this guy, not this guy.
Not this
Especially-
guy.
Yeah, not this guy. Especially since our
That's so
game
funny.
Guilty Gear, like we both use the same main character. I haven't switched characters ever. We just
Wow.
Wow.
nah,
And
not
also,
him. Even our characters say that to each other, like, "Yo, lose to you."
that's so
Nah.
funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we always just had that energy. So
Mhm.
now we're older, we're a little bit more watered down. We're just like, now it's more like a friendly rivalry. But before it was like, no. We're about to just we have to see who's top dog again, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, no, that was something I really loved about their fight, where Katakuri really was seen, and I remember even what he said, like, oh, like our audience is getting kind of noisy, and then Luffy's like, yeah, you're right, and then they just had an aura off.
Yeah. But he's the collar and conquer. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Flambeau's like, yo, Luffy's him, and he's like, yeah, he's Timothy. Middle name.
God.
That is so funny.
That's
Yeah,
so
and then
ridiculous.
so
Mhm.
Yeah,
and
but
then,
also correct me if I'm wrong, but like, cause I haven't watched the fight in years, but like, isn't this the point where Katakuri's attacks started being like more goofy looking, like that donut wheel and stuff, or did he do
You
that
know
before
what?
this moment?
You know what? I never thought of that until you said that.
Because I feel like that's the equivalent of like Luffy, like when Luffy goes, I know like
Instinctively.
it's irrelated, but like when he goes to Gear 5 and like he's like I'm free now. I feel like
Mm.
Katakuri had that moment of like, oh, I'm free now. I can like ball out. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You know what? As you're saying that too, Katakuri's attacks were also a lot stronger.
Mm.
Yeah, because he was being true to himself.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to
He was
have
fighting to win now, not to protect the family.
Yeah, they was fighting.
Yeah,
They were
fighting
just
for
fighting for
himself.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I didn't realize that. Yeah, Katakuri is really emulating a lot of Luffy's techniques in terms of how goofy but efficient they were and damaging. And that's when, and Luffy really, like, Luffy's pain threshold really went up from when Katakuri started hitting like that. Luffy was like, oh shit, this actually is this actually hurts.
This
Now
is
I'm
bad
actually
news.
yeah.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
bad
I remember
news.
that.
yeah, it's like this is actually starting to hurt now. Because before Luffy would keep getting up, he was like, he'd shake it off. Now he's like, no, I'm in pain. I'm
Wasn't
feeling
that
these,
because
I'm
he
actually
started using
feeling these hits
hockey?
now. Sorry,
Wasn't that because he started using hockey? Because I'm pretty sure like Luffy
they're
doesn't feel
using it from the
pain
beginning.
without hockey.
They're
Oh,
using
okay,
it
never
from the
mind then.
beginning. It's
Okay.
just that Katakuri's hockey was stronger, so it burned Luffy.
Mm,
But
Yeah,
Katakuri was really like railing into him at that point. Where
yeah.
I was like, Luffy was like, "Oh, I'm actually feeling these hits now," because now Katakuri is like really going all in.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so just kind of going back on his relationship with Flampe, you know, she was just like, "Oh, you're supposed to react this sort of way," and then you know Katakuri decides to be himself. Right, we hear those stories all the time, you know,
Mm-hmm.
of she weaponized my vulnerability or whatever it is. And where was it? I'm trying to find yeah, there it is. I'm trying to find what Flampe said, because Flampe she went in. I was like, yo, you're not the best sister. Brule is the best sister. Brule is
Oh
best
my
girl.
god, I love Broly so much.
Really so
Brule is
good.
best girl.
And also, like, I don't know if Oda did this intentionally, but like, if you look at their designs, like he made Flampe like very cutesy, but then he made Broly look like a traditional like witch in fiction.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
like I
I
feel like,
was kind of ugly, and I was like, oh, Brule is actually best girl.
but it's so funny because like when you look at a character, like if they're a villain and like they're good looking, you're like, oh, he's gonna be badass. But if they're a villain and they're ugly, like Trouble, you're gonna like your reaction is like, oh, this guy's gonna suck. I'm gonna hate this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
then when you
like no, sorry, go on.
I was gonna say that like Broly, like at first, like she when you first saw her, you're like, oh, like she looks like she's gonna suck, 'cause, like she looks like a traditional witch. But then like all the silly shenanigans when they kidnapped her and stuff were so funny, and like you just end up liking her because like she's so like also silly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then like I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but like after the fight ended, like who's the one that went to Katakuri to like console him?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Sorry, you wanted to say something too, Nedu?
I was just gonna say like one of the things that I love about Oda's designs, and this is honestly a bit of a frustration for us for years, like because a lot of his designs for women just generally look the same, and it's just I find it mildly frustrating just because.
Nami in a different skin.
Well, that's exactly different hair, slightly different eyes. It's just variations. And I find it frustrating just because he's such a good artist, and like there's no specific design document for what a human looks like unless they're a woman. But that's the thing. Like, what I really like is, and again, like, it's very intentional when it comes to these things because like some of the more air quotes unattractive sisters are the really beautiful, lovely ones. Like Lola and Shippen
Oh
are
my god,
wonderful human beings. They're fantastic. And then of course there's Brule, who's best girl, and then Pudding, obviously more of a traditional looking woman in One Piece, but she's got the third eye, which people find hideous. And so it's just like all
And
of the
just emoji
sisters.
erratic.
Oh yeah, yeah. She's.
I'll forget that.
I mean, she's a little.
I hate
cracked.
you, Sanji-san.
Yeah, she's a little cracked because of years. Like, I blame
yeah.
probably
Maybe a
the
few
years
therapy
of-
sessions.
Yeah, exactly. She's gotta talk to someone. But like the siblings who are like the sisters who are presented as being less traditionally beautiful tend to be in the Charlotte family tend to be the ones that are the kindest, the most thoughtful, the most
Most
supportive.
considerate.
Exactly. And so Brule also, and I didn't even think about this until like after I finished reading the arc, because it's like you said, Brule is like, oh, she looks like a witch, like a hag. And again, this is One Piece. Oda's really good at humanizing characters. I mean, he did the same thing, granted, with Caesar, because horrible monster. But then
Caesar and Biggie, like they're
And
horrible people.
Yeah, exactly. They're horrible people, but then you spend a bunch of time with them to get into some of the gags here and there, and you're like, okay, like didn't Bege just shoot? Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about
You're
it.
a good dad and a good husband, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you know that one TikTok of like, what about the murders? What murder?
that's Bege. It's just like, what murder? What you talking
I
about?
haven't seen that, but it sounds accurate. Yeah, because I was
That's
just like,
funny.
I remember watching the arc and being like, I was partway through. I was like, why am I liking Biggie now? Like,
Yeah,
you
I know.
actually killed mafia members just to cause war, and then you'd leave.
Yeah.
You're not even trying to take over the territory.
Also,
You just cause
prime
chaos.
example is Captain Kidd. Like we all like him because he's cool and he has magnetic powers. But then when he was first introduced, apparently his bounty was higher than Luffy because he was killing and torturing like civilians.
Yeah, you have the highest casualty rate among all the supernovas. We're like, yo, this guy.
But he looks cool though.
He has Magneto powers, so I kind of like him. He's punk cannon. kind of slaps.
He's a war
Like,
criminal, but he's our war criminal.
yeah, he's our work
literally.
killer. Plus Killer plus Killer likes him, so I'm just like, you know what, Killer, he's gotta
Yeah.
have some good because Killer,
Even
you
Killer
know,
too. I'm like, your name is Killer.
yeah,
Yeah, but did you
yeah.
see the way he eats pasta? It's so cute.
It's adorable.
He's just a
Yeah,
guy.
didn't it go through like the hole or something? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
went through the- yeah,
Like,
yeah,
First of all, I was like, first of all, it's so unhygienic, but whatever.
yeah. Like, I have so many questions. Do you
I
clean
was
that
like,
mask?
gross. I was like, you know what? Live your life, Killer. Enjoy
Yeah.
yourself.
You do.
Enjoy
you.
your meriende.
Yeah. There you go.
But yeah, no.
Yeah.
So when Katakuri gets emotional with Flampe, and yeah, you guys are right. Like, it was once again Oda subverting our expectations, right? She's the blood gets on her face from Katakuri stabbing himself. She's like, "Oh, stay away from me! Don't touch me! You're so lame. You're gross. I'm so disappointed in you." And then she even goes on to say, like, because he took off the scarf. Is it like a scarf, or like, because the weight fell, had kind of like a weight. I don't know. I guess it was a scarf.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a
think
weighted
so.
scarf knowing Katakuri. I have to always,
It
exercise.
could
work
be,
out,
honestly.
even when I hide my insecurities. And so, yeah, she also says, like, "Oh, you look like a pelican eel. I'm so disappointed. Hey, say," and then that's the other thing. Hey, say something. And I've been in some toxic situations and relationships where, she'll say something, whoever she is, not them, she'll say something hurtful. And then, I want to walk away. It's like, well, why don't you say something? It's like,
Why?
What do you want me to say? Like, you want to incite this conversation further so you can get further? Like, what am I supposed to say? You called me stupid. What am I supposed to say? You're stupid too. Like, what are we doing, right? Yeah. Why don't you say something? Trying to incite a reaction out of him. And then let's show everyone that loser's face. And then she gets everybody. It's tactic. The term that Kevin Samuels uses called sign language. So shame, insults, guilt need to be right. And so she's using this like traditional shaming tactic, sign language, to shame him, because then she gets all her groupies. I will never say followers, groupies, to start taking pictures of Katakuri to send it to the rest of the family, embarrassing him, trying to ruin his reputation, just letting him verse instead of just acknowledging, like, this is how he feels. And this is why this reaction, because we don't talk about this reaction, is why he's never opened up in the first place, is because of the fear of that and actually experiencing it.
Yeah.
The thing that helped him get through it is Luffy acknowledging him.
Yeah. Like, literally his greatest fear about his appearance is coming true. The people are reacting exactly the way he was worried they would. And when that happens, like, it's generally pretty horrifying. It's generally pretty traumatic, because you're like, literally all, like, the years of trauma that I've experienced, the years of, like, mental blocks I put, like, this is exactly what happens when I fail. But like you said, because there was someone that actually acknowledged him, someone that saw him as a human, that, like, literally saw him, he's like, I'm actually okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, I also just want to add a point, and then before you go to Z's, like, Katakuri is so insecure of it, he projects it.
Yes.
Because even when the whole cake chefs were like, "Oh, we won't say anything. What did you say about my mouth?" Like, he was even making things up that people were saying about him. Like, he was so deathly insecure of his mouth. People just talking to him, he would say, "Oh, they said something about my mouth, and I'm gonna have a reaction now." So sorry, you want to go, Aziz, and I guess you can also do Nedu.
Please.
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say that I lost my, because, like, if I get distracted for a second, like, my thought disappears.
My bad.
No, you did nothing wrong. What you shared was valuable, but what was it? Yeah, like, when that happened, like, I was so, like, scared for him, because I feel like if you're paranoid about something, but then it's proven true,
Yeah.
like, how do you even recover from that? Because usually, like, when people have insecurities, like, others tell you, like, don't worry about it, like, it's all in your head. But
No one's gonna
it was
notice.
not. Yeah, no one.
Look at
It
his
was not in his
feet!
head. People noticed, and, like, so everything just got confirmed. And I feel like you need immense willpower to fight that, because, like, your greatest, like Nedu said, like, your greatest fear is now true. Like, okay, what's the next step now?
Yeah, it's really hard. And I think what happens with a lot of folks, people that I've talked to in my session too, where that greatest fear does happen, right? And there's no one to tell them otherwise. And that's, like, really scary. And there's no one to prove that differently. And it's really tough to recover. Like you said, it's really hard to come back from that. And so, again, I actually really appreciate you pointing that out too, where it's just like, yeah, like, think one of the like I don't know exactly what they said, but one of the chefs may have said something along the lines like no, don't worry, it'll never leave my mouth. And he's like, what'd you say about my mouth? Like it's just like all he heard was the thing that was triggering him, right? And he legitimately killed those guys. He straight up murdered those dudes, and they didn't do anything wrong. But that's how horrified he was. Like he's just like, no, I need to fix this immediately.
I need to ice this. No one said anything about my mouth. It's like no one said anything about your mouth, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the exact like we were talking about, right? Like the opposite of when it happened again, except this time where someone was actually being horrible to him. He didn't care because he finally saw someone who saw him and was just like, wait, no, it's actually okay. Like this person seeing me and it's fine. All these other motherfuckers don't even matter. Then they just like, conquered hockey and then just like, ejected their souls from their bodies.
Right? No, but that's exactly it. It's important to have those people. Like there's a I guess you could say a zeitgeist, like an overall society perception that like emotional intelligence equates to how women are perceived for how they emote, where it's not typically the case. Just because you're more emotive does not mean you're more emotionally intelligent. Emotional intelligence is much more. It's much more nuanced than that. And so there's like this idea of just why can't he open up? We can open up, and it's like, well, there's probably spaces for you to open up. He doesn't really have as many spaces to open up, and if he does, it may be used against him, and then he's triggered by whatever you might say by trivializing it. I remember seeing a video of like this guy talking about like it was on Abba Preach, and he basically had like this wire coil, and he had it for like 40 years, and it's actually finishing. And then like his wife didn't like understand like why he was sharing this, and then he was like, you know what? Never mind.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of men do, right? The re-triggering happens. I don't know if there's a more proper or better term for it, but that re-triggering happens, and then a lot of men have just learned to shut off. You just shut down. And then you're told you're not emotionally intelligent. And it's like, well, whoever the other person was, sometimes is not also emotionally intelligent either. She's just emotive. There's a difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially with the whole thing of like there just not being space for it. Like I remember, and also like there's not being space. Sometimes it's like it's a case of not being space, trying to protect people, and then also it's just like not even knowing how to because you've never had a chance to as well. Like and I remember like one of the groups I was running for men like years ago, we were like it was a really supportive space, and a lot of these guys have just like literally there's like several classes even before they join my group at the time where they literally just get emotional training just to understand the terminology, the language, like what it might feel like, all this stuff, and it's super valuable for them. And when they came to my group, like we were talking, and one of the guys like again was just like kind of like this guy in his mid to late 50s. I remember the look on his face where he just kind of like, I don't have any friends. And he looked up and he was just like, I don't have any friends. He's like, I've never had friends. And we were just like, whoa, what's happening? Like we kind of sat there like, hey, like this sounds really important. Do you want to like have some space to talk about what's going on for you? And he's just like, I've got my guys. I go out, we drink beer. We don't talk though. He's like, we don't talk about anything. He's like, I don't even know how to. He's like, after spending time with you guys, like I just realized like this is what friendship looks like. This is what support looks like. This is what being emotional looks like. And it was really interesting just seeing the look on his face and just like realizing that he didn't even know how to. He didn't even know what that was supposed to look like. And like this guy, very intelligent, had a lot of things to say, had a lot of like really thoughtful and interesting feelings, right? But it's just like, where was that ever going to come out? Never felt the space or time to, never felt like safe to. And so that was just such an interesting thing to see and realize. And then if we're, again, comparing to Katakuri, like he's on the top of a mountain by himself, right? Like
that's a perfect way of describing him.
Right. I appreciate that. Like he's just kind of on this pinnacle that no one else could possibly reach. He is on the peak. He is on the peak of like his family, of like strength, of like he is so infamous. No one can really picture anything about Katakuri besides the image. And so when you're like that, that's incredibly lonely.
Yeah, right? And just there's 2 points I wanted to add to that. So one is like, you remember when Pudding got captured, everyone was just like, if Katakuri that was there, it would have been a completely different outcome.
Yeah.
That says something about his character. Like the fact that we all know if Katakuri was there along with Cracker fighting, I think it was Aokiji and I forgot the sniper guy. it would have been a
Oh.
completely different outcome.
Yeah.
Oh, I
yeah.
think his name is Vaughn something, right?
I don't. You know,
Von
Yeah.
Auger?
we see him
Von
like
Yeah,
not-
Van
I think
Auger, I think.
Auger. We see him for like 9 episodes in all the 1,000 episodes of One Piece. But I never.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm like
Yeah.
9 episodes total, and
Yeah.
4 of them was Marineford.
Yeah.
That's
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
wow.
Well, you know,
Mhm.
that's it. That's exactly it. And you know, and this kind of goes into something as he said before, you know, about being the gentle giant. You know, I was talking to one of my friends. I was talking to her and saying, we have a hard time conceptualizing that big ass grown men need protection.
Mhm.
We don't know how to see that in society. So I remember like being at work with my last job, and one of the young guys I work with, he's like, some of my guys are bigger than me, by the way, and I'm not a small guy, but they're like significantly bigger than me. And you know, it was a youth dinner, and one of the young women was hitting on him, and he wasn't interested in her. And long story just to simplify it, he rejected her. He turned her down for her advances, and she took it personally because, you know, it is a lot harder for women to put themselves out there because, you know, rejection is harder, and, you know, neuroticism, blah, 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 blah. Ocean test, go search it up. Point being, she didn't receive it very well. And so what she ended up doing was just making him uncomfortable. And so he came to me and he said, "Hey, Eb, I'm going to go home because she's really becoming much more emotionally erratic and emotive, as we talked about before. And I'm feeling uncomfortable. I think it's best I leave. So, you know, there's no problems that come about." And I told him no. And I asked him, like, if the genders were reversed and he was making her uncomfortable, what would we have said? We would have told him to leave or tell him to settle down. So the same case for you too. If you're feeling uncomfortable, come to me and I will make sure that you feel safe in this space. But we don't think about that because she's like what, 5'4", and he's 6'2" and like 200 pounds of muscle and does boxing. But even though he is that, he was feeling unsafe. He's 19. But we don't really think that. He's a big Nigerian guy, but we don't think that because we don't associate that. Even like Jordan too, like I'm very protective of him, but we don't see that in terms of, because he's the same height as me. He's 6 foot. I have a lot of big ass grown. Now they were boys, now they're men, and we don't really think about them needing protection. So it's the idea of protection that you to perceive for like a 5'4", you know, young woman or girl, or, you know, a 6-year-old boy, but like a big ass 20-something, 19-year-old man. We don't really conceptualize those ideas of how is he feeling unsafe in this space and how can we make him feel safe.
Yeah. No, that's actually really, really interesting, really important because, like, again, I'm not going to go into specifics, but there's certain spaces that I've worked where it's more likely for men to be targeted by violence, and statistically, that's just
Yes.
the case as well, right?
Yeah.
But in talking to some of these guys, they're just like, yeah, sometimes I'll like ask my like friends who are girls or women to come out with me because it's less likely something will happen. Or like, and literally there was a situation too where someone was just like, I was with
I have
my
an
mom, and that
example.
was the only reason that we didn't get got that day was because they're like, oh wait, it's with his mom, like let's, like, so it's like legitimately, like they've said, like, yeah, sometimes I'll just ask my sister or my friend to like come with me when we're going from this place to that place because it's literally just safer.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna give an example. So when I got my PS5, when I first bought it, I went by myself, and I look like a real Scarborough youth. I look like a I look like a hood man. I won't even lie. I won't lie. I had like this sweater on. I had this exact sweater on, this Nike sweater on, and I had my Nike Tech fleece, and it's all black. It was winter because I got in February just before Final Fantasy VII Rebirth drop. So I'm in all black Tims, black jacket, and I walk into Best Buy, and they have like this Fairstone delayed payment plan, and the woman refused to give me the sale. And then I went back home, and then the following day she wasn't there, but I went back with my wife because I actually had identification. She refused to accept any of it, right? And I got home, and my wife was just like, "Oh, like with the way you were dressed, like was the woman who was your cashier black?" She said, "Yeah." She's like, honestly, she told me like some of her worst experiences are with black people in terms of cashiers, and she's like, especially with you, looking like a like a Scarborough youth, you're definitely not gonna get the services. And then we went the next day, no issues. I wore the same Nike Tech fleece, by the way, just to she was like, "I don't think you should." I was like, "Actually, I will," but going with her changed the whole experience. So no, that's definitely a thing. Once again, we don't really conceptualize what safety looks like, especially if you're 200 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's messed up.
This reminds me. I know, like, it's a serious topic, but remember the guy that looked like Sanji, and how, like, it just
Duval.
ruined.
Duke or something like that.
Duval. That's
Yeah,
Duval.
Duval, and how it just pretty much ruined his life. Oh man, like it's crazy how, like, just society will have a notion of, like, what is a target, or like what is someone who does not belong to society, and like immediately, like, even
Yeah.
with no fault of your own, like, you're just ostracized like that, or like not allowed to participate as you'd like to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Or
And
feeling
then
like you should be able to defend and protect yourself. You
Mm.
basically you can handle it. You're
Mhm.
fine. You got this. And then we go into, and then it leads into the conversation of, oh bro, how you doing? I'm all right. I'm
Mhm.
straight.
Yep.
It comes from that. Just there's no conceptualization of safety. In fact,
Yeah.
Yeah.
at one of my conversations with Jordan, I was just telling him, because he's a tall, handsome, well-dressed, 6 foot tall man who makes the amount of money that he does at the age of 28, you're more of a target. Because it's a lot easier for someone to just say something about you. That's it. It doesn't have to be true. Doesn't have to require any evidence. Someone just has to say something. God
Hey
forbid.
guys, you have the pelican mouth.
Sorry?
Hey guys, you have the pelican eel mouth.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Right? You're more of a target. When you're at the precipice, like Katakuri, it's very easy for you to fall because you're Himothy, because your middle name is Himothy. It's a lot easier for you to fall compared to if you're just a regular guy. When you've really worked on your craft, you become much more of a target. And I had to really get him to understand. I'm like, you got to move in a certain way, because it just takes like just a slight mistake, and your whole image, whatever you built, will just fall apart.
Yeah.
But we don't have those conversations. It's like, oh no, just pull yourself up by the bootstraps, just figure it out, because that's what you're supposed to do. As a man, you're supposed to just solve everything yourself. You don't need any help. You good? You got it? Good stuff. Good luck.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys wanted to touch on that. I was about to go on to Brule.
On my side, I feel like you said it all.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, Brule. Let's talk about Best Girl. Let's talk about Best Girl. So Brule, Katakuri is one, I think, like the immediate younger sister. She was always one who acknowledged Katakuri, right? Even like when she got like that scar on her face, she was even just like, what did she say? Like, Katakuri, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to change.
Yeah.
She's best. Yo, like that's an A1 sister, man. Like, I don't even know what to say to that. Like, for someone to say, you know what? Don't worry about it. I got hurt. I'm perfectly fine. Don't stress it. Don't take it personally. It's not your fault. Even though he obviously did. And yeah, he kind of did play a role in terms of her getting hurt. But shouldn't blame yourself. You're like 9, right? And like one of the things, what was it? Let me find a quote. Yeah, there it is. She said, because like when Luffy beat Katakuri, he fell on his face and he got back up. And I think he asked Luffy he was gonna go. No, he'd asked him after. He got up and then he fell on his back. Yeah. He did it on purpose. And Brule saw everything, right? She's watching it silently. And she came in tending to his knees. She didn't, and when she walked in, she doesn't even shame him. She didn't say anything. She just came, brought out the medical kit, started cleaning him up, started dressing his wounds, and then she just casually said, "What was it? You fell on your back on purpose, didn't you? You were on your stomach first." And Katakuri couldn't say anything. He would just look kind of shy. He got kind of flustered, and then he looked away. He was like, "I guess." And then, he responds with, because I love the interaction. I had to document it. But Brule, all those stories about how I never lie down, they're not true. And then Brule responds with, "Yeah, I know. I've seen you through the mirrors. You've been playing the role of the perfect, unbeatable man for our sake." And I was like, I died of peak fiction.
Also, on top of the peak fiction, I like how she was that the quote verbatim from the anime?
Yep.
Yeah. So notice how she said, like, I've been seeing you through the mirrors, because when you look in the mirror, like, you see yourself for who you are. So that's what she's been seeing him.
Yeah.
At, like, Oda I kneel.
Dies of peak fiction. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah, and so that's exact. And then it was the thing I loved about that interaction. I don't think I documented it, but where was it? No, I don't think I have it. Katakuri is just like, you have observation haki. Like he couldn't
Yeah.
conceptualize the idea of someone seeing him that like, no, my sister must have superpowers like me.
Hmm.
For her to see me, she must have the same abilities as me. It's like, no, she just sees you, bro. She sees you
Yeah.
for who you are. And he had a hard time receiving that. And I think that's sometimes what people can be, is just like when someone actually just sees you and just tells you for what it is, it's like, wait, what? What do you mean? Why would you say you're obviously gonna you're obviously gonna backstab me? There's no way someone would do something this good for me. There's no way someone would be this kind to me. There's no way that my sister is able to see me for who I am. And it's like, no, that's who she's actually seeing you for who you are.
Yeah.
And
You know,
I would
going
also
back.
add,
Oh, sorry.
I'll just add as a very small point. I like how it was a
Take your time.
sister, because too often you see the idea of like it always has to be a romantic interest to see you for who you are, and it's like, no, it's his sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a queen, man.
Hmm.
I was gonna say that like this reminds me of like those. I don't know if you guys have seen the videos of like when someone rescues like a dog that's hurt, or like a feral dog, and like at first like the dog just keeps like barking and pretending to bite, but then as soon as they start petting the dog, like it just calms down completely and chills out and like relaxes, and all that like violent energy is out the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Like
that's
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yep. Because
Yeah.
the dog wants to bite you, and then as soon as you get your hand on the dog, then it's
Mhm.
just
It's like,
calms
oh, this is what I
Yeah.
needed. Yeah, dog tooth, if you will. Okay. Sorry.
That's exactly why I brought that up.
oh wow.
You brought it full circle.
You're
That's
at
incredible.
level 3. I might maybe level 1.5. I
Sorry?
have to catch up. You're at like level 3. I'm at level
Yeah.
like maybe
No, it's
1.5.
just that, like I feel
Yeah,
in
try to get on your
fiction.
level.
I feel like in fiction, like especially if of an author of this magnitude, like everything has to be there for a reason.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's fair.
Oda's very careful about where he places characters, themes, names, like that all plays into each other. Yeah, we were talking about Sanji, right? Like he's Sanji for so long, all of a sudden Ichiji, Niji, like he's very like like likes
Yeah.
to play with those things. So I think you're like I think you're absolutely right. So yes,
Mm.
I'm trying to get on your level, Aziz. Like, damn.
Also,
Like
this is like I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but like I just love, because like I also like listen to a lot of hip hop, and like I love hip hop
Wordplay.
where I don't get everything from the song from the first go.
Yeah.
Where I need to like listen to the song again and again and again to get everything out of it. Like for example, one of my favorite songs of all time is by my favorite rapper Aesop Rock. He has a song called
Not many
Blood
people know who
Sandwich.
that is. Okay, I see you, sir.
Maybe like 10, 13 people in the whole world.
I'm one of them.
You're a real one.
I appreciate you. I
So
haven't
in
listened
his
to his music,
album,
but I know him.
sorry?
I haven't actively listened to his music, but I know him.
Oh, dude, his music is phenomenal. Oh my God. Like I'd still be listening to his stuff from like 2015 and still catching lines now.
There. Also, just before you go in, I'm gonna let people make it clear, because they probably think we're talking about ASAP Rocky. No,
Oh
we're
my
not
God.
talking
No.
about ASAP Rocky. His name is ASAP Rock.
No, Aesop. Like you know
Aesop, there
Aesop's
you go. I
Tales?
think
Yeah.
AESOP and then Rock.
Correct. Yeah, like
Yeah.
the cosmetic brand.
Mhm.
Yeah, so he has a song called Blood Sandwich.
Mhm.
And at first you're like, what the hell is a blood sandwich? And then you listen to the song and it's 3 verses, and each verse is a story about his older brother, then a story about him when he was a kid, then his younger brother. And then like, you're like, blood sandwich, what does that mean? Then you're like, oh my God, it's a sandwich because his brothers and he's in the middle, and
Yeah.
blood because like family.
Right.
Bars.
Yeah, so like if you're like a
Bars.
writer or like of some sort, like everything has to have a purpose. You have to like do something, and then okay, like how does this connect to this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like for
Yep.
example, when I first started watching One Piece, and I'm like, okay, like Luffy has rubber powers, whatever. Then like you see him fighting, and I think in almost every big fight, he loses like multiple times, then comes back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, rubber, because rubber bounces back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also,
Like, yeah, it's
rubber is
absolutely.
free. Rubber
Sorry?
is free.
Yeah. Like see
It's,
what I
you
mean?
can
Like I
do
think
whatever you
everything
want
has to
with
be
it.
a purpose.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I love that you're also like mentioning like like Aesop, just because it kind of goes back to the whole One Piece, because Usopp's name obviously is a play on like Uso, which is lying, but like it's also a play on the term Aesop
Oh,
fables, right? Because those are like there's tall tales, like
yeah.
Aesop's fables
Oh.
are tall tales, right? And so like it's a literal his name is a combination of those things.
That
So
is
the fact that you
incredible.
brought up like it's all coming full circle today, baby.
Yeah.
Like
Which also like I think he said in an interview where like all the stories that he was telling Kayla about like all the giant fish and
they all
whatever,
come
like
true.
they're all coming true like in
They
the
all-
story.
yeah. Like Usopp's
I'm gonna have to go
gonna
back. I'm gonna have to go back now.
Yeah, I
it's
think like one
actually
of the
amazing.
stories he said, oh like I was out in the ocean and we encountered a big fish and it swallowed us, and then like later on we see Laboon and all that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go
Absolutely.
back. I'm gonna have to go back now. I'm gonna have to go back.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
like a good author, like yeah, the story could be like mundane, but then like once you rewatch it, you're like, oh my god, like he had all this planned, or like at least he went back and retroactively made things connect.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
Oda can cook. Oda can cook.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I
Oh
love fiction.
man. Me too. Peak. Anyway.
You love
Really?
No, you're saying I love fiction. I'm like,
Oh yeah, I love. Yeah, no. Well, it's easy, when we start covering with the way you look at things, now that I see how you assess things, which is similar to me, but you're on a different level. We're gonna have some great episodes on Bleach. To be
Oh
honest
my
with
god,
you.
I can't wait, man.
Yeah, no. We have some stuff. We have some cooking up for 1,000-Year Blood War. So, but yeah, no. Katakuri being seen as it made me think of Okurin from Dandadan. So I don't know if you guys listened to episode with Badebo and Jordan, but those, like, so I think it was episode 3 or 4, where Okurin Takakura is like walking to school, and he notices Momo looking at him. She's noticing that she's waiting at the school gate, and he's just like,
yeah.
Why is she there? Are we close enough where she'd wait at me at the gate? Nah. She must be, and this is I know as a man I've done this, where it's like I'm going to calculate what's going on. We're logical, so I'm like, what are the variables for this, right? Even though like you can rationalize yourself into something irrational, which no one talks about, but you're like, I'm rationalizing like this must be not what's going on. Kind of like I said, Katakuri was like, my sister can't really see me. This girl must not be waiting at the gate for me. She must obviously be waiting for someone else. And then he walks right by her. And then Momo is just like, no, I see you. And then he's like, and she even bumps him to make him know, it's just like, I'm talking to you. And so it just goes back into that whole thing with Katakuri, because, I've seen with a lot of young men, like when I have certain conversations with them, when I'm working with them, like they usually just they're very respectful, but there's always that, because like I said, I say things for what they are instead of like trying to be curtailed to people's feelings. Obviously, I'm mindful of it, but I tend to be more on the direct side. And I know when I always have like, how would I word it? That conversation where there's like a switch where like, oh, this guy sees me. This guy's, and to what Nedu said before, this guy sees me and he's still seeing me. He sees me actively. And from there, those relationships switch with them. I remember even like being at one of my nephew's birthdays. There's some older boys, and it's a 2-year-old's birthday, and this is on Deb's side of the family, and there's these young guys, 11 and I think 14. So you guys remember, when you have to go to like your little cousin's birthday, you're like, you're on some Marshawn lens. I'm here just not to get fined. I'm not just trying to be here. And I saw how different
Community service.
Sorry.
Community service.
Perfect. Yeah, you're just doing community service, right? You're just getting your hours, right? And so I saw, like, I'm at a point. I know because you do the same community work as me, Nedu. You're more like it's harder to find kids who don't like anime and superhero stuff than to find them liking. Like, I'm at a point. I assume you do. If you're 14, you like Iron Man and you like One Piece,
Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
If you don't, that's when I'm gonna get. I will be shocked. Like, it's very rare to find kids that are not about that.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I'm seeing these two, and then they also have a third brother, and I'm just like, I'm gonna assume you guys are into this stuff. And so I started asking, like, oh, you guys, I just said, like, you guys watch anime. They kind of got, oh, okay, I started listing the shows, and then just to really let them know, because like kids, they have like a bullshit sensor, right? Like, oh, this guy is like Uncle Ed. He's not cool. He doesn't do this stuff. So then I was just like, who's your favorite characters? And like Jujutsu Kaisen. And then one of them was like Gojo. I was like, bro, that's basic. Everyone's favorite character is Gojo. Like, pick someone else. And he was like, oh, okay. And then we were just having more anime dialogue, superhero dialogue. And then, one of them said Spider-Man 2. And then the eldest one said Spider-Man 2. And I was like, you guys talking about the game? He's like, yeah, you're talking about the game. He said it kind of passively. And I was like, yeah, actually, I haven't played Spider-Man 2 yet, but I did platinum Spider-Man 1, one that came on PS4, and I almost platinumed Miles Morales Spider-Man. And I do this with a lot of young people on purpose. I mentioned something very niche and specific.
Yeah.
because unless you are in this thing, you wouldn't know. So I said I didn't get the 60, which is true. I haven't got the 65 hit combo with Miles Morales. And then the middle brother, his face contorted and changed, and I knew, I'm in. Like he now he's like, oh, Uncle Ed, he's actually about this. Like he's not just kind of entertaining. He knows about the 65 hit combo for Miles Morales, and then from there they just opened up. They just started because like now, not only am I acknowledging the thing that makes them happy, which within African culture is stupid and childish, and you shouldn't do that stuff for reasons. Uncle Eb is acknowledging this in public, and he's actually about this life. He actually knows this, and there was that shift. Now they started talking about everything from that point on, and that's what I do. That's what I live for. Is that being able to get you to make you feel seen? Because I know that what that would have done to me, and what's that done for me growing up is just being seen, right? And you like I said, you're seeing that with Katakuri with Brule. He's seen. You see, this guy got flustered. This guy looks like a character from like Mad Max, JoJo Bizarre Adventures, Hokuto no Ken, stoic, metal motherfucker. And this guy, he's blushing. He's blushing and turning away like a schoolgirl in front of his sister. That's what being seen does, even for like a man like that. So I don't know if you guys want to say that, but loved it.
Yeah. I mean, I loved it too. Like, again, it was. I think one of the things I really loved was just. I know we've talked about this already, but it's just like the fact he's like, I know, like that. I really love that dialogue of I know, just like I've already known. I've known this whole time. Yeah, exactly. I've known this whole time, and that's okay. And it's interesting too because she was also saying, my brother's never done this, and this, and she wasn't doing that because, like, she was doing that to support him. She knows how he's on that peak alone, and she's just like, you know what, like this is what he feels he needs to do, and he's doing this for me. I'm going to support him. And as soon as he's just like, shit, everything's falling apart. She's like, no, dog, I know, I'm with you. I've seen all of it. Don't even worry about it. It's such a space. And so yeah, when he blushes and turns away like a kid, it's like that thing we talk about in therapy. It's like that inner child, that inner wounded child is like still there within Katakuri. Tiny Katakuri that we saw in the flashback, that kid is still there. That one that was crying, saying, I'm never gonna let this happen again. That's what was coming out at that moment. And because he never gets a chance to have that part of him show up ever. That part's never nurtured. And then the second that Brule was able to be like, hey, I know, I see you, and I'm okay with it. Like, of course I am. You're amazing because you do these things for us, not because you're at the peak of that mountain. And then that's when he was just like, was able to just blush like a little kid and turn away. Like he became a bit of a child again, and it was like totally fine. And that was just such a really emotional moment. It's probably my favorite part. It's my favorite part of the fight, frankly. Like, it's my favorite part of that whole conflict. I mean, the square up is like very close second because that just again blew my brain. But like, just being able to see Katakuri be a person and then be safe with another person just felt so beautiful to see. And again, like Oda being able to capture this like such an important moment. I think epilogues and cooldowns and all those moments after conflicts are super important because they say a lot about the characters and the themes that are taking place, right? And one thing that Oda's very good about is doing that and making sure we get to see certain things, right? And it's interesting because oftentimes, if we look at some of the previous villains, like obviously the biggest, the most iconic ones I can think of that are talked about a lot is obviously Crocodile, who was the Underlord, getting punched into the sky, like he goes right through the bedrock.
Do you know what the song of Spirit is called, by the way?
What, sorry?
Do you know what that song is called? That plays the opera song. You know what it's called?
Oh, no, but please.
New World.
New World. Ah, there you go. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
It plays in the Digimon game. They use the same song, Dovrak. My cousin found it. I don't know how he found it. But it's called. Wow. It's not in the One Piece OSTs. It's actually an opera song.
It's a classic song. Okay, thank you, because I was trying to figure out what that was a little while ago, and I forgot to keep. Thank you. I'm a.
Got you. I have the song on my phone still. Like I love it.
Yeah, because I love that, and that moment is beautiful and iconic in the anime. It's fantastic, and then of course to contrast that, we have the Heavenly Demon. Doflamingo.
Yeah,
who's a great inverse
to the underworld.
Exactly, because that's punched down to the ground, right to hell, because like you're not a god, you're not and you're not an angel, like you're just a piece of crap, and then smacks him right down the ground. And so like these endings for villains, like the final hits, the final like conflicts, often say Yeah, exactly. They're very thematic. They say a lot about certain themes that are being played out, certain aspects of that character's dream or their vision of themselves being completely shattered. And for Katakuri, it was calm and intimate and kind. So
Yeah.
it's my
Oh
brain.
my god.
I also
Honestly,
want
I feel
to
like
add,
I'm out of. I feel like I'm out of stuff to say.
Sorry.
that's it's fine. It's fine.
No,
I
not you.
do
Like
also
this in
want to
general.
add,
Like this has gone for like 2 hours now.
oh yeah, no, well
Yeah.
yeah, the conversation can be long. Well, we're approaching the end. I also wanted to add on the Doflamingo fight. It was also Luffy breaking free of a cage, because
Yes,
that's
that's
really
true.
what Doflamingo represented. It was a cage, right? It was
Yeah.
control, it was constraint, and Luffy wanted to be free, and he wanted to set everyone free, and he
Yeah,
destroyed
little
the
puppet strings.
exactly right.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, that's exactly. It was very calm, and he needed that. And you're making me think. Yeah, when it comes to everywhere I've worked, I tend to stay in contact with almost all, if not all, the young men and boys I've worked with, because they had that experience with me where they were seen.
Mhm.
And so another thing with a lot of us men is that, like, we get kind of, this goes back to the whole, like, she's not your therapist. We get kind of comfortable with, like, suffering, because that's what you're quote unquote supposed to do as a man. And so a lot of them get comfortable with, like, well, Eb has seen me, or Uncle Eb has seen me, and I guess that'll be the last time I get seen. And it's like, no, I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna be in your life in one way, shape, or form. I'm gonna keep seeing you. However, I like to push the conversation forward with them in the sense of, let's build more people that see you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Because
really
we
good.
get comfortable. It's like, oh, I have one person. It's like, I shouldn't be your only person. That's not healthy.
100. Absolutely. Yeah, building community within your own space is so important, right? Because like it's not too similar when you're a therapist and all of a sudden people are like, I'm so comfortable being seen by you. It's like, all right, let's expand that. Let's grow that, right? We're just a small
so
portion
hard.
of this person's life, like, right? It's just like you, like, again, like you're a whole human. You're also going to have life outside of whatever we have right here. So let's help build that. Now that you know what it feels like, now you can also seek out other people that will see you because you know what it feels like to be seen.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And then also there's a point where you said, like, Katakuri's inner child being acknowledged. It got me thinking, like, when Luffy said, that's just how you are, or that's just who you are to Sanji, I think that was the first time Sanji cried like that since he was like 7.
Yeah.
I don't remember, because like he kind of cried in the arc, but he just more so kind of like, he was never weeping. Like at that point he was weeping. Like he was like snot, tears, just ugly, like
classic
Kim
One Piece
Kardashian.
crying.
Yeah.
The classic One Piece crying.
Yeah, he had like the classic ugly One Piece crying where he was like, oh, like he had just everything, just all
raw,
the
it's real.
were just coming down his face, right? Which he never did. Like he kind of tear up in different arcs. Like Sanji's not afraid to cry, but he's never like all the fluids are coming, the drool, the snot, the tears, all coming down his face because that inner child was seen. Because the last time he did it, he was like 7, being by his dad, and brothers.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And then the last thing I would say is, like, Katakuri as a kid, he said, "I'll never lower my guard down again." I've seen a lot of boys and young men who've said that. Obviously, it's changed with some of the ones, with a lot of the ones I've worked with, but I've seen guys who said that, like, I'll never let my guard down again, and they haven't.
Yeah, they really haven't. Yeah,
that fear of being re-triggered again. It's
sad because it can sometimes just take one interaction. And you're like, yep, never gonna let that happen again. Like, I don't know if you've seen that one comic of like this little blob that like lives in like a titanium box. It tries to go out of it for a second, just like, oh, let me see the outside world, and then it gets punched immediately. Then it's like, oh, never again, back into the box.
I think I've seen that. No, that's exactly it. One of the things you guys can speak on, one of the things I've seen in my short time on this earth is that, like, it doesn't take much for someone to turn out worse. It also doesn't take much for someone to turn out good or better, I should say. It just really just takes like obviously it's not just solely forever one person, but it really just takes that one person, that one interaction. Like with a lot of the youth I've worked with, like they just have that one person where it's like, you know what? I actually want to be a better person now. Because of this person being in my life, I want to be a better person. Like all these interactions have made me be a better person. And yeah, it just takes, like, as much as it is the whole Joker, it just takes one bad day. It also just takes one good day. Where it's like, oh shit, like I'm seen.
I feel like this is a good spot to like mention one of my favorite manga of all time, Vinland Saga. I don't know if you guys have watched it or like did you watch the farm?
I love it.
Yeah, so remember that one scene at the ocean where like he's with Kessel's dad, and then he's like, like the farmer's dad, the
yes,
Yeah, and then he's at the beach, and then he's like, "Oh, like, I feel empty now. Like, I used to have my revenge quest, but now that's gone. I've been
Yeah.
farming for 3 years. Like, what am I?" And then he told him, "Only when a vase is empty can it now be
Yeah.
filled again."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, such a beautiful quote.
Yeah. Oh man, I gotta read the manga because I love.
Makoto,
Yeah,
Makoto.
Oh, the manga
anime is
is
amazing. But
I think this is literally the only one of the few. I've read like dozens upon dozens of manga, and I think it's like one of the very few that straight up just made me like just close the chapter and like sit down and like tear up.
hmm
Damn.
yeah, I can
Insane.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
no, definitely. Yo,
I
he
like it.
Makoto can cook. People don't appreciate him, but Makoto can cook.
my man. I love that man so much.
Mm.
I was so mad when he came here to Toronto and we didn't even know it. Did you know about that disease?
Give me
Wait,
one
what?
second.
He came to Toronto for an interview, or like I think he was at like the Japanese Cultural Center during like TIFF or something like that. He was here like 2 years ago. I was so mad.
What the heck?
I need to pull this up.
No. Oh, that's. I had no idea.
I didn't know. I didn't find out. I think it was in the group chat. I only found out like 6 months later by happenstance.
Oh.
Someone said something about Makoto, and I was like, "Wait, what?"
Mm.
And
That
who
makes
knows
me so
whenever he'll be back here to Toronto. But yeah, he was here.
That's
This
nuts.
is me. Oh, can you guys see? I don't know if you guys can see it or not.
Not
Not
really.
quite.
No.
Oh my
Darn.
god.
Maybe like.
Anyways, I got him to like sign my copy,
Oh shit!
and
Where were you? Were you at the thing?
yeah, I was standing in line, and like I had my friend like record the whole interaction where like he signs my copy, and I just told him that like, bro, what you did with Thorfinn is like so incredibly immaculate, and like I just spent like 1 minute just telling him what a wonderful author and person he is.
hmm Oh wow.
Yeah, it's
That's incredible.
Shout outs
wait,
to you, bro.
didn't I tell you about this?
No, I would
Oh
have
my god,
remembered.
dude,
don't
because
think
like
so.
I went there with a couple of friends,
How
like
did you find out?
so I don't remember actually. I think someone said it in the subreddit. Oh no, he tweeted it because I follow him on Twitter and have my notifications on. Because he sometimes like
Ah,
tweets stuff that are related to the manga. Like he'll just say like a random anecdote, like oh this one like this I was drawing this scene about Thorfinn or whatever, and like my child who was like 2 years old came and sat on my lap, and it just changed my mood, and I changed how the direction I was gonna take in that scene.
Mm.
Like he
damn.
writes very like insightful things. Like anyways yeah, so I found out I
Amazing.
went to he had a panel where like he was being interviewed, and my friend that I always see. Do you guys go to comic like Fan Expo and
Come on, bro.
Anime
I've
North?
been
Yeah.
broke lately,
So
but yeah, typically.
do you know the guy that always cosplays Guts? He always cosplays Guts. He has like a little bit of a long hair.
Mm.
Possibly.
And it was like he always notices me and I notice him because I cosplay Gintoki, so like we notice each other. And so we kind of became friends, and we went
Nice.
together. And then like he asked him, he said, Makoto, how do you feel about people seeing Vinland Saga as in the seinen big three alongside Vagabond and Berserk? And then the translator translates, and then he's like, people say that about me and the creator of Vagabond in the same conversation, and he was so touched.
Wow.
That's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah, and
That's
apparently
really
Thorfinn is based on him too. Apparently he was a shithead as a kid.
That's
He said that verbatim.
Oh,
amazing. That's actually amazing. That's incredible, man. That's so
Mhm.
cool.
Thank you.
Oh, damn. Gotta.
Yeah, wonderful guy. Sorry for
Okay.
sidetracking though.
No,
no,
no.
I'm actually
No, no,
I'm actually
that's-
just salty, but I'm actually glad you got to me. I'm
Yeah.
both salty and I'm happy for you.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Mhm.
Well, yeah, no, I think this has been a great conversation. I don't know if you guys have any other lasting things you wanted to, touching points you wanted to get on in terms of Katakuri, but I think that was one of the most nuanced films that we got to see. He's not like mustache twirling evil, like not to say like they're poorly written, but like Doflamingo and like Crocodile, who are just he's different.
Yeah,
Like,
it's different.
Yeah.
he's so
Mhm.
layered, and
Mhm.
he's as he's put it, antagonist out of circumstance, not really like.
Mm.
Like I'm pretty sure next time we're gonna see Katakuri, he's gonna be an ally of the Straw Hats. Like the Big Mom Pirates are probably gonna be an ally of the Straw Hats because he's like he even said like Katakuri's gonna lead us. I think even Prospero said that too.
Didn't one of the Straw Hats or like what's his name, that lion dude, like fuck up Perospero? I don't think he'll be cool with the Straw Hats, I think.
Right.
Fair.
Yeah, that's right. Paris lost his arm.
Prospero was also like cartoonishly evil. Like he was just
Yeah.
a horrible person. Like you're just like, I respect Katakuri, but like you're just doing hurtful things to people at this point. Like Big Mom has like some sort of cognitive psychological issue that's going on with her. You can kind of feel bad for Perspero. Was like, I'm in my right mind. I'm gonna kill your best friend.
Peristero just chose violence like
Yeah,
every
he
single
chose
time. Yeah,
He's like, I lost my arm. I could let them go, or I can keep chasing you guys to another country. I'm gonna keep chasing you guys to another country. Like he's in his right mind whenever he's doing something hurtful. The other ones, it's like, I can see why you're like even Big Mom. Like you can, as much as you did horrible things, you can see like there's some sort of psychological issue that going on with her, where you're like, I can see why you hate your family,
but like you're still a villain.
Yeah.
But like, I can in a previous life, he was like one of those heavenly dragons or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Who ate people. That was dark, by the way. Her cannibalizing her.
Oh,
I was like, where's everybody? And I was like, I remember just kind of searching up, and I was like, wait, did she? And I was like,
and she's like, oh, I've got the same power as Mother Caramel. You're like,
yeah.
Yeah, like dark undertones. One Piece.
Dark.
Also incredibly portrayed, because like a 10-year-old would do that and be like, where's everyone? But then like as an adult, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfectly worded. Yeah, there's a lot of subversion in this arc. Like he does that with a lot of arcs, but he did it quite a bit in this arc where you're just like, oh,
yeah, that
we're not all singing.
That's why Whole Cake Island is one of my favorite arcs. I mean, again, Sanji bias 100%, but there's so much, like, it's all about like the dark undertones of the world, because there's always been like slavery and racism and genocide within the world of One Piece, but never has it been so blatantly displayed, but in a way that is very obvious, but also has a bunch of nuance. And then you see that theme constantly between all of the characters. And then, of course, Katakuri being the perfect example of that dichotomy that we've been seeing throughout the whole series. So yeah, like just Katakuri is a beautiful character within that sense. And like I said, that ending of his being so peaceful and calm is just it's it's incredible narrative genius.
Reminds me of like the ending of Meruem in Hunter x Hunter. If you guys watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely. Where it's just like, oh, you end in a quiet moment, which people get to just be their true selves.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, no, and I'm looking forward. So our next episode will be on. Yeah, I think we'll do Odin next. Just kind of talking about arcs. Odin. Definitely my second favorite character in One Piece. Like I was like, if Sanji didn't exist, he would have been my favorite character. Just from like his leadership skills. I was like, this guy is just, you just cannot like him. He's one of those characters like everyone likes him. Then definitely one on which we have to talk. We've talked about both of them, but like I said, Pudding and Hyori, I think they're fantastic female characters that add to the story of Sanji and Zoro.
Yeah,
but I see. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. It was a little bit shorter because we already got to the main points, because Katakuri is this fantastic character all around. Shout out to Oda, always in the kitchen cooking, never stops.
Nope.
All right, guys, take care. I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
All right.
See you guys.
Everyone. Boy.
Bye.